100 out of 10.
Yeah,
No
easily.
notes. I am in awe. I didn't. Caroline, welcome. It's the Corkboard Chronicle. I didn't not trust SNL to
Right.
do something really fun. But here's the reality, is that SNL50 seemed like almost somber in a way, and
Hmm.
it was very heavy on the retrospectives, which I thought we were going to do again, which would have been fine,
Right.
but my fear was like, is this going to feel too familiar to what just happened?
Yeah.
Everything was new. Everything was hilarious. Like the
Yeah.
sharpest writing maybe ever
Yeah.
on an episode of SNL, which is what I think we have to consider it at this point. It was just a double episode of SNL.
Exactly. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was soaring the
Yeah.
entire watch through, speechless.
I was, I went into it kind of with the mentality that it was about, for me, quantity over quality. Not
Mm.
to say that I thought it was going to be bad, but I didn't
Mhm.
really care if it was good or not.
Yeah, well,
It
that's
was just
true.
more about seeing all of them together. That was all I cared about. So, if it's funny, cool. If it's, middle of the road, fine. I don't care. But it exceeded my expectations. I was sitting on my couch. I was laughing, cheering, clapping. You would have thought I was part of the audience.
Yeah.
It
And
was,
I think we must have talked about that last episode where we were like, it really doesn't matter what they do. We're
right.
gonna watch and we're gonna have the time of our lives. So the fact that like we were already there, we were already into it, and then it was as good a show as it was.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, I don't even necessarily know where to begin with our discussion necessarily, other than like the broad strokes of it, right? Which
Yeah.
is that the audience was having the time of their life.
So fun.
And, you watch things like the 25th anniversary special and the 40th, and it's tough to get that audience going
Right.
because they've seen it all, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so like, even the sketches in the 40th, which were very good, were not getting the reaction from the crowd that it would have gotten had there been like fans in the room.
Right, right. Yeah, you kind of have to go into it assuming that audience is maybe a little tougher just because it's what they're used to.
Yeah,
So they're maybe not going to find everything as funny as, we would if we were in the audience.
exactly.
But I think that whatever they were doing really, really worked for the people in that
Hmm.
room.
Yeah, absolutely, and worked for me.
It worked
Oh my
great for
god,
me.
look, we were in like the 2.5 hour mark by
Hmm.
the time the alien invasion sketch came up. And when well, first of all, Meryl Streep's appearance, period, is history on
First
SNL
ever time.
ever time, and she looked right at home. She was fully in that character. I mean, obviously she's incredible, but
Yeah.
she's hilarious too. You
Thank you,
know?
Martin Short,
Oh my God!
for
Thank you,
bringing
Martin
her with
Short.
you,
Just get
allegedly.
married, please. Get married
Confirm
live on
it.
SNL. Yeah. Um. Uh. It was late in the sketch too. The line where she talks about, because in that sketch they're always pantsless when they're talking about
Well,
what
of
happened to
course.
them during the,
Yeah.
and she got shuttled back to Earth and landed in a church. And she says, I do have to apologize to Paul, whoever that they had a
Hmm.
name, fake
Yeah.
name, and John Hamm is like, who is that? She goes, that's the poor man whose family probably wished they had a closed casket service. I literally lifted out of my body
Yeah.
because I was like, we're 2.5 hours in. Every sketch has been fantastic.
Yeah.
And even that deep in the show, the writing is still that rich and that good. I just, again, this was a transcendent experience,
It
start
was
to finish.
everything I wanted and so much more.
there and not look again. We're talking broad strokes, and then
Yeah.
we'll get down to the nitty gritty. But like, I know that is that
Did it like spend too much time on the screen and then like
I don't know. It's made it through uh 3 hour shows before. Like I watched it with a couple people over like Discord. We were watching it. Just friends of
Mhm.
mine know like SNL people. We're not actually in the world, and that's evidenced by the fact that neither of us were in the social media pit on the red
Yeah.
carpet. Look, I would have said before the event like I would just love to be there in any capacity until I saw the iPhone tank at the
Yeah.
back of the red carpet, and then
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to do that.
No.
I would
There are
rather watch from
limits.
home than do that."
Yeah.
And so, hey, more power to everybody who I don't know posted Instagram stories from that little gated area.
Yeah.
I would have absolutely hated that, and I just don't know about like. Those were the people that you let get ceaseless selfies with the red carpet, and anyway, it's just the
Yeah.
selfies versus like actually just taking pictures of what was happening is just bizarre. They weren't interviewing anybody; they were just like, "Hey, Bill Murray, come here.
Right.
You don't know who the I am, but let's take
Yeah.
a." It's just the whole thing was
Like
really bizarre.
why?
So
Yeah.
that's the one place I wouldn't have wanted to be
Mhm.
through this whole thing. Um, so you know what? I'm glad I was at home. But in terms of like I know one of my friends used to host the podcast. Used to host my previous podcast with Meryl Millet. She was talking about how well first the first right off the bat opening with such a somber performance was was an interesting choice to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, I think it worked because
Mhm.
what was it called? It was like Homeward Bound or something
Homeward
like
Bound,
that. It
yeah.
made sense to open with something that was talking about coming home, talking about
Right.
returning home, and clearly it was an important performance to Paul Simon. He talked about that and was like, I did this with George Harrison in 1976, and it just was a really really good performance, but had me kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be similar to the 40th,
Right, right.
in which it's going to be more like a wow, can you believe we did it, look
Mhm.
back. And then I mean by the time Steve Martin's monologue even started, it was like, oh no no no,
Yeah.
they're shooting for a different tone here.
Yes.
um did you feel like any era was underrepresented last night?
I don't in terms of cast, I think it was
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was definitely heavier on the more recent casts. I
Mm-hmm.
think the like Will Ferrell and later, but they had people from, the late or the 80s, the
Mm-hmm.
90s, I mean, in terms of the actual content of the show, it was definitely like second half
Yeah.
focused. I don't know, and I think maybe that middle of the first half, post original cast, but like pre Will
Mm-hmm.
Ferrell, Tina Fey, all that. Maybe that was a
Right.
little bit underrepresented, but I still think we had like the heavy hitters from that era making appearances.
Yeah, for sure. And because I was thinking about this and I was trying to figure it out too. Um, and the fact that like it is 1,000 episodes
Right.
of like a late night show that you're trying to essentially summarize in 3 hours.
Right.
I think if you think about the fact this is the fourth big anniversary special that they've done. It was the 15th, the 25th, the 40th, and now the 50th.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, in a way, if I'm trying to put myself in their position, I think they were focused on the fact that they were trying to avoid rehashing as much as they
Right.
possibly could.
Because
You know,
those classics from the early seasons, we've seen those in these anniversary
mhm,
specials
right,
already.
right.
So do we need Bassomatic, again? No,
Yeah,
probably not.
probably not. Right.
You can see that in
And
the 40th if you want.
exactly. And I was like, which could be another reason that they were resurfacing the 40th
Yeah.
this whole time.
Yeah.
They wanted, and this is my theory about the whole thing. The entire like 50th season catalog that they've put together, which includes the season itself, the documentaries, the
Hmm.
music documentary, and the concert. It's an awareness that in the day of streaming, everything that's ever been made in this show exists together.
Yeah.
So if we resurface the old, then it's it is essentially in 2025 pointless.
Right.
Um, like if you want to go watch every Wayne's World ever ever broadcast, you can.
It's right there. Yeah. You don't need something in the special as like a proxy.
Exactly. And so to me, this felt more like, and this, I also felt it when I was like, wow, the entire show, we only had 3 retrospective, like,
Yeah.
clip edits.
Right.
In the 40th, I think we had about 10. I don't have the actual number in front of me, but like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And, um, and so I was very surprised that they weren't going to rely on that again. But again, a lot of it would have been the same. Like 40 years of clips to 50 years of clips doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
Um, so it when you break it down like that and you look and you think of all of these things as they are supposed to exist together because of the inability to summarize this entire show in just the 3 hours on Sunday.
Hmm.
They didn't have retrospective clips tonight because they made a Peacock documentary, because they
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
a uh, a musical performance documentary. They didn't have church chat because we did that in December on the actual show.
Right.
There's these. They took the approach that like it might not feel like one single pointed night where we think back on all these things, but if you look at the entire thing, the full product as it was given to us, um, that's the retrospective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
No,
think
I
that's
think
how they
you're
were
absolutely
going
right.
about it. And so I'm again just in awe about all of that, and like the awareness that takes,
Hmm.
um, because like because it is such an old show, you think like, okay, well, we need to put all of this in the main show, and then you you don't actually,
No.
because we have, and that was probably the challenge going into this show, was like how do we, yes, it was 10 years ago, but it feels so recent, and
Hmm.
like the 2015 era versus like the show right now doesn't feel that distant from itself as much as
Right.
like your 2015 to 2005. That feels a lot different. Um, so anyway, I'm just rambling now, but like it really impressed me that they decided to go about this as a new opportunity than
Yeah.
necessarily a direct looking back.
Right. Not dedicating, first 30 minutes, we're going to do the first 5 years, and then the next 30,
Hmm.
we'll do the next, not kind of breaking it down like that. But yeah, focusing on this stuff that I guess the way I was looking at it was when people think of SNL now, those are the big sketches I think that stand out to people.
Hmm.
Not, it's not like the end all be all of popular SNL stuff, but if you were to just like ask people on the street, especially younger people, that I think was a pretty good sample of memorable SNL stuff in more recent years.
For sure. Like, would I have loved to have seen, a 70s sort of sketch?
Right.
displayed in like high definition. Yeah, that would have been an interesting like time capsule kind of a thing to do. But you they didn't just leave it at, well, we're going to do another Bronx beat. Like
Right.
they're mixing these similar sketches
Mhm.
in terms of like a talk show with a funny voice. Uh,
Right.
they're bringing Linda Richman into the Bronx Beat world, and in it, whether it was inadvertent or whether it was completely on purpose, showing how similar these two sketches from extremely different eras really are at their core,
Yeah. How
and
well they
how they
fit
speak to,
together.
yeah, how well they fit together, and how like even though they are so similar, they spoke to very different generations and very different
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Um, and that really revealed itself to me um, when Linda Richman came on, and Maya Rudolph was getting overwhelmed because she loved her husband so much, um, and so I was wondering which side of my sweater was that even. Um, uh, Maya Rudolph was getting very overwhelmed because like she loves her husband so much,
Mhm.
and it was immediate. Linda Richman goes, "Oh, you're getting verklempt," and then
Right.
right after that, Amy Poehler goes, "Oh, here come the waterworks." It's like
Yes.
those are the same beats, just
Yeah.
in different lines and in different sketches. And whether it
Right.
was on purpose that they said it one right after the other or not, it was a stunning showcase of like this idea has actually worked twice
Right.
in two very separate areas, and now we're bringing them together here at the same time in something new. Like
Yeah.
amazing. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like I legally have to nerd out over like the production of the entire thing.
Mhm.
um, we saw some shots of like, a sketch would end and they would do a big sweep
Right.
across the audience, and you'd see the sketch, you'd see all the cameras set up. After the, I want to say it was after the Scared Straight sketch,
Mhm.
that was when I really was like, oh my God, because you see, um, you see the fact that like they had about half the surface area in that studio to do all of these sketches that they usually do.
Yeah.
Like the if ever you were watching these sketches and you were like, oh, this looks like weird, something's very off about this in like visually. I also noticed it in the Black Jeopardy sketch where it was like the desk
Mhm.
was huge and the people
Right.
were small.
Yeah.
That the proportions of the desk didn't change. They didn't make any other compromises to the creation of that sketch, other than the fact that the camera had to be, because of all the space modifications they made to the studio, about 10 feet closer to the
Right.
actors than they usually were. So you have a camera positioned way closer, zoomed out way wider, and that's what caused the weird distance
Mhm.
effect in all these sketches. But when you see the at the end of the Scared Straight sketch, um, you can see that it's like the sketch floor ends, and then there's a camera on a static tripod immediately on the edge of that set, and then immediately on the edge of the camera behind is a row of audience members.
Yeah. They were
They
all
had
just
just
right.
they had just enough room to put one row of cameras on sticks and shoot the entire thing that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it was already it's already an extremely difficult show to do, clearly.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's been talked about a lot on all the documentaries and everything. But to then face this challenge of doing an entire new episode, twice as long as it usually is,
Mhm.
with half or less of the space that you're usually used to, it's this this entire year will win every Emmy in the world.
If
Like,
there's any justice, yes.
this was television production. It does not, you do not get better television production than this
Hmm.
anywhere. Um, Absolutely just amazing.
Yeah.
I, I'm, I'm floored the whole way through. Um, any other like macro notes that you felt throughout the whole thing?
I don't think so. I just was having the time of my life, you know?
Same. And these mixes that they were doing in terms of the music performances,
Hmm.
which we'll get to, but like Miley Cyrus and Brittany Howard
Yep.
duetting anything, which I understand they performed on the concert too, the
They
Radio
did,
City
yeah.
concert.
Yeah.
Um, and but that is such a good combo. Period. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what they sang, but the
Yeah.
fact that they sang "Nothing Compares to You," which is originally a Prince
Hmm.
song,
Hmm.
hugely important to the show, and then covered by Sinead O'Connor,
Yeah.
who I feel like everybody at the show and everybody in just culture has kind of had a reckoning um, with her original SNL moment.
Right.
Very impactful choice
Yes.
to have, again, those two people who were very important to SNL and extremely talented musicians paying direct homage to two people who are essential to the show's history
Hmm.
simultaneously.
Yeah.
I keep saying I don't know if it was on purpose, it could have been inadvertent, but here's what it accomplished. But the more of these examples I'm talking through of like this feels like what they were going for, I don't think there was a single accident
No.
throughout this whole show.
No, I don't
Like
think so. It all felt
they
super, it all had to have been very deliberate.
it was so intentional, and it
Yeah.
should have been, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
again, the time limit of 3 hours, we have to be efficient, right? Above
Hmm.
all else, with what we decide to cover and what we decide to put on stage. And there was no more efficient musical choice than
Right.
having them perform "Nothing Compares to You." It
Yeah.
just blew me away. Um, but yeah. So anyway, we're I could talk about this for days, literally days on end. I'm going to be talking about it forever.
Right.
But
I'll never stop talking about it.
yeah. But like if those were the big like intentions I got out of the whole
Hmm.
thing. Like that's the message I felt they wanted me,
Yeah.
the viewer, to
Yeah.
receive. First thing we need to talk about, we need to compare notes on, because you and I traded tasks. We
Yes.
divided and conquered for this particular coverage.
Yeah.
I watched the red carpet coverage on all the social media from hosted by Amelia de Moldenberg. You watched the red carpet hosted by Leslie Jones, Willie Geist, and Matt Rogers on
Yes.
NBC. So anyway, well, big moments from your red carpet. It seemed like
Big moments. Well, big moment for me personally was Matt
uh
and Bowen. I
oh,
thought
that
that
was
was just, I mean,
very
like,
cute.
it was so sweet. It was just very
Hmm.
nice. And, they're sitting there talking and they're like, we're best friends. And I'm sitting there yelling at my TV that the general audience just doesn't get it.
No,
The way that
no.
I get this moment right now.
The casual fan going like, "Oh, I would,
That's
I'd like
cute.
to see."
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Oh, that's really cute," but like the depth
Yeah.
to which with which that moment just has, just
Yeah.
because they went through so much together, auditioning at the same time. One of them
Mm-hmm.
got it, the other did not, and it ultimately wasn't. It worked out for both. I
Right.
think. I mean, I think Bowen has gotten higher faster, maybe.
But yeah.
But Matt's like on his way. He's on
Oh,
Netflix. He's
definitely.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's around.
Definitely.
Um, and that was just a very cool thing, like just for their friendship, I think.
Yes. It was
Um,
very sweet. It was just like very touching to see it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, they opened it, well, I think the very first thing was Leslie and Tina, which I love. Leslie was excellent on the carpet. You know, because it you get somebody who was on the show out there and it immediately has that kind of like baked in familiarity
Right.
with the cast.
Yep.
And I mean, Willie guys, he's just a good interviewer, you know, he's a pro at that.
Hmm.
But it opened the very first moment that really hit me hard, obviously, was Matt interviewing
Hmm.
Tracy Morgan.
Mm. Yeah.
Because right away Tracy started talking about how grateful he was to be there for it. So
Hmm.
I'm crying at the red carpet.
Yeah. We're minutes in,
Like,
and
yeah,
you're
like
already
almost
sobbing.
immediately. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, here we go.
Uh-huh.
So that was a very sweet moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they were just obviously heavy hitters getting interviewed. Obviously, just like it was just a good time to see everybody. Weird moment where Peyton Manning compared SNL to a football game, if you can imagine.
Mm. Hmm.
It's
Well,
like I was
he's
like,
done both. I guess
got the
that's the.
one. I was like, okay, these are the two things. How are you gonna link them? It
Uh-huh.
was funny enough, I guess, but I was like,
Yeah.
you don't have a non-football metaphor?
That's just his old deal, you know.
Yeah, I was like, all right, Peyton.
Yeah, the impression that I got, because Meryl was watching the NBC one and then I was watching the YouTube
Mm,
one, and we were on Discord during that whole thing. And she said just the general idea that I got from the NBC show was that it was very um, it was fast, and
it
we were going
was.
inside, we were going outside, we were seeing like they included a lot of different people and a lot of different combinations. The Amelia de Moldenberg like social media one was pretty straightforward. It was like
Hmm.
she'd bring someone on, talk to them for a minute and a half, bring someone else on. But I'm still interested to watch that NBC red carpet, just because it seemed like just, there was a lot going on, a lot popping.
I have a theory about it.
Yeah.
Right when it started, there was something at the bottom that said portions pre-recorded,
Mm.
and I think that Matt's parts, at least some of them, were
Hmm.
pre-recorded.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
He had this beat with Cecily in front of a Maybelline counter, and there was some crazy product placement going on in their interview. Cecily like literally pulling Maybelline makeup out and naming the shade, which
Uh-huh.
whatever you got to do, I guess.
Sure. Yep.
But I think that was pre-recorded. A couple of his other ones, I have a feeling that that wasn't entirely live, him doing
Yeah.
his parts,
Okay.
which is fine. It was just interesting.
Hmm.
Kind
Yeah.
of an interesting
Well,
choice.
there's a good chance that a lot of that, especially towards the end, was not live,
Right.
because
That's what I was thinking.
on the Amelia de Moldenberg one, you know, towards the last two guests, I would say, they would cut back out to like the actual red carpet that was outside of wherever
Hmm.
they were shooting these interviews. Um, they would cut back out to them, and like the 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 brief looks into the red carpet area in those last two interviews, it was empty, just ghost
Yeah.
town,
I mean,
because the show
yeah,
was
to
about to
do
start.
it, yeah, right up to when the show starts. So you are gonna, yeah, because everybody was in their seats when the show started.
Right, right.
I
So
was
it's
like, well, I
cleared
guess
out
we're
at
kind
some
of
point.
hurrying them along.
Yeah, exactly. So that would make sense if,
Yeah.
and it would make sense that they were able to go so fast if they were kind of piecing it together, maybe through the afternoon, not quite
Right.
just yesterday.
All of
Um,
Matt's stuff was inside. It looked like he was in the lobby of 30 Rock.
okay,
So maybe some of those were pre-recorded. Maybe he was catching people as they went in. I'm not sure. All I said was portions were pre-recorded. Got no
yeah,
more
gotcha.
information.
All we know is that they weren't uh, genuine. It was
Yeah,
not
it wasn't
linear.
live.
Somehow this was a little bit different. I also know that there were a lot of like they'd put like lower thirds up that had a lot of stats on the screen.
Yeah, how many times they
Um,
hosted, how many times they were musical guests, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, and it was just funny to see like or to hear about it again. I haven't seen it yet, but just like Kim Kardashian West hosted one time. All these people just
Right.
hosted one time, cameo appearance, that kind of
Right,
thing. And it's like
yeah.
literally
What
everybody got an invite.
well, I wonder I don't know if I ever saw it. I wonder if they put anything up for Meryl Streep and what it would have said
What it
since she
was, right?
has no SNL stats.
Yeah, just stay tuned because they knew it was
Maybe
coming.
dating Martin Short.
that that should have been their first question, honestly.
They didn't
Can we
want the
just
carpet
put this to
together.
bed? Yeah, I mean, and they went to the concert together. They've been hanging out a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
uh, you know, we're we're fine with it. You know,
whatever.
if they want to tell us, even if they don't, like, no need to be ashamed. Just find love wherever it
Right.
presents itself.
We're happy for you guys.
Exactly. We're supportive. But yeah, so I just in terms of the DeMoldenberg red carpet, like we had so that's how it was structured. It was she would talk to somebody for a few minutes and then that would be it. They would
Mhm.
cut out to the red carpet. It would just be silent. It would just be like a minute or so to change out the guest, really,
Yeah.
and then back into another interview. Bowen was the first one interviewed on the Amelia de Moldenberg
Mm.
stream, and that is where they announced that she's going to be on Las Culturistas Wednesday. So imagine me at like 7:03 p.m. last night, and there's already breaking news about like our world, which
Yeah.
they totally did on purpose. Like, thank you for that. And so yeah, so you start with Bowen Yang. Bad Bunny comes in, Amy Poehler comes in,
Mm.
Chloe Fineman, and then Sarah Sherman joins with Chloe Fineman. Did you see Sarah Sherman's like red carpet look?
Her like hair.
It was like this old Hollywood
Yeah.
like tribute almost.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Like, again, they've been making jokes all year now about like Sarah's just wardrobe choices. So you would assume that she was going to do something a little over the top, and this was like
Right.
over the top, but in a different way. And
Not the
she
way we're
just looked
used
so
to.
good. Yeah.
Not yeah, not the big patterns and the bright colors and stuff that we would kind of expect from
Mm-hmm.
her. You know who looked really good? And I
Ooh.
couldn't stop thinking about it every time I saw her? Adie Bryant looked
Oh my God.
fantastic.
I did
Like,
not. Yeah, I didn't see
and
her during the red carpet yet, but like even during the uh the alien encounter
I
sketch,
couldn't stop looking at her. Her hair was perfect.
her hair was perfect. She
Yeah,
just looked like she was just glowing. She looked
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. Um. Who? Well, so then they did take a live shot of David Letterman on the red carpet, which kind of cracked me up a little bit.
I can't believe he was there.
I really can't either, but like, I mean, I don't know if he was there by way of being a guest of Jim Downey. I mean, he's had all of the SNL people on his show. I mean, Bill Murray
Right.
was his first guest on every show he did.
Yeah.
He was his first guest on the morning show, and then late night, and then the late show. So it makes sense. Like he's attached to all these people, but it is kind of fascinating when you think like, you know, Conan, Jimmy, and Seth
Yeah.
all managed to host SNL while they were on late night, and David Letterman was the only one that didn't do that.
Yeah, he doesn't have that like direct connection to it. It's
Right.
kind of a yeah.
Yeah. Just literally friend of the show. I mean, there's
Right,
no more
yeah. In
literal
the truest
translation
sense,
than that.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was thrilled to see him, and he got a shout out on the main show.
Mhm.
Um, the the oh so I just there were some production things on the social media side that like could have been a little better. I mean, it's only two cameras. You know what I mean? They only
Right.
had two cameras shooting the interviews and then one outside. And so I'm just like really, Sarah Sherman's talking about something on her bag. Like
Mhm.
she had like three bejeweled shrimp, and she was like, if we can get a shot of this, and they get a shot, but it's like wildly out of focus, and I'm just like,
Right. Come
okay,
on.
yeah, all right, and like. my personal anxiety, I came off of covering a track event last on Friday and Saturday in Boston. So like I was just particularly sensitive to,
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
because like
Come on, guys.
it happens all the time and I get it, but I'm like all right. But yeah, so we had yeah, Chloe Fineman and Sarah Sherman went together. One thing that also happened kind of a lot was that Amelia doesn't do live. She does
Right.
chicken shop dates. She does like
Yeah.
red carpet stuff that then gets uploaded after the fact. But she was on tight time for this
Mhm.
particular thing, so there were a couple of times where she was like, where she just ended, and she's like, "All right, time to go."
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah.
just specifically, um, after she was done with Chloe and Sarah, she was like, "Okay, guys, you need to leave." Like just cracking me up. It was just perfect. And so they took a shot of Rami Youssef outside with some man, and like me, my antennas go up, and I'm like, "Oh, one of us?" No, I don't know who I don't know who that was. He's married to a woman, but we had Marcelo and his mom came and got interviewed by
Yeah.
Amelia. That was fun.
Yeah.
Um, Let me just tell you, like, I was born in 1997. Marcelo Hernandez was born in 1997. So in a way, I'm like, in my own mentally ill way, I'm like through the looking glass, seeing what would have been possible if I
Right.
had talent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just like, oh, like I'm not 17 anymore, and like I, you know, could have been there right now,
Right.
but
With some
you
different
know,
choices.
some different, just a few, just tweaks maybe in the last 10 years. Um, and then she got to interview Questlove. That was really fun because Amelia had a lot to say about like the concert and the documentary and things like
Mhm.
that. Which by the way, like Questlove doing the entire concert, backing
Yeah.
literally everybody.
Yeah.
Again, I think we talked about it last time we recorded. Like he's also going to be swimming in Emmys. Like that is, he really showed his talent that we always knew he
My
had, but like this year, woof.
one of my it was interesting, kind of it struck me during the concert, and then I was thinking about it more because the roots were in the actual special for a couple people.
Yeah,
Maybe just Lil Wayne. I don't know. Um, but I was like, how funny that this is the Roots' first time on SNL.
it's not.
Is it not? Because I couldn't
No.
figure out if they've ever truly like been on the show or if they kind of got there by way of being with Fallon.
So they they were the outright musical guests on February 13th, 1999, an episode hosted by Brendan Fraser.
Okay. I tried looking
Um,
for that and I swear I couldn't find it.
yeah, so that was wait, let me see if I can just because I know I'm gonna be doing a lot of on the fly research, so I'll share it with you.
Hmm.
Um, oops. Yeah. So it was technically a dual
Okay.
thing, but they
Okay.
both got like the musical guest billing, and it's possible. Let's say that was season 24. It's possible.
Oh, there they were. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so they performed together, but I do remember them being like specifically called out and named the Roots. Um, and then the other time they backed Toots and the Maytals. They were
Okay.
there backing. They like helped them out on the episode hosted by
Oh.
Donald Trump in
All right.
2004. Um, so they've been around. And then there
Okay.
was like one thing when I first got when I first like started my Twitter account. I thought it was interesting because like I would watch the show and I would be like, and as a huge fan of Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, I would be like, there's a laugh in here that sounds so familiar. And I'm like, is it possible that like Questlove just went to the show in the
Oh, I'm sure.
audience.
I'm sure.
He went so often, and it became like a thing on
Okay.
his Twitter account where people would call him out and be like, "I think I hear Questlove in the audience again," and he would be like, "100%, yep, you heard me."
Okay.
He probably in the span of like 2013 to 2015 went to at least 20 episodes.
Because I was sitting here this whole weekend being like, wow, like the Roots are like I guess I associate them with Fallon, but not
Mhm.
necessarily like SNL.
Right,
You
right.
know, so I thought it was interesting that they kind of became the band that
hmm
this kind of whole weekend.
It's an easy
Yeah.
find if you want somebody who can play with Bonnie Raitt
Right.
in one half hour and Lil Wayne in the next.
It's
Like,
a no-brainer. It was just interesting to me. I was like, "Oh, Jimmy Fallon's the house band and Jimmy Fallon." I was like, "Okay, sure, I'm in."
yeah, yeah. It's just fascinating to me that like they've really cemented themselves as the team you need if you're going to change genres drastically
Yeah.
in your show.
Yeah.
You know, and that's experience that I think they've always had in a sense, but like really honed on late night. There were so many
Yeah.
like smaller bands that would come in, and the Roots would help them out quite often, in a similar way that like Paul Schaefer would do on Letterman.
Mhm.
That's another group that could really do anything in their day. So yeah, just wow, just fascinating to think about like all he accomplished just this year.
Yeah.
Um, interesting. So they did like commercial breaks every now and then in the Mildenberg stream,
Mhm.
and they did. They one of them was just a like supercut of the SNL50 special,
Interesting.
and I thought it was going to end with like a card that said like streaming now or something like that, but like it was just like a review of SNL50. It was
Remember
really,
this?
yeah, like, hey, this was fun, right? Um, oh, okay. This is probably the last thing I'm going to talk about with the Demoldenberg stream because I realize
Okay.
we're almost an hour in. Um, all the interviews were fantastic. You would have fun to rewatch this thing, but the biggest news that came out of it, not even news, just like murmuring.
Mhm.
Um, Kiki Palmer was interviewed by Amelia de Moldenberg. During her interview, Amelia asked about when Kiki announced her pregnancy,
Great.
and Kiki goes, "Oh, that was so great. That was my first time hosting. I was so nervous." And I said, I didn't hear what the rest of what she said because I was like, "Yeah, that was your first time hosting. It was your only time
Yeah,
hosting."
you've been noticed since then.
So to refer to her hosting in 2023 as her
Mm.
first, or 2022 as her first time hosting, makes me think that maybe her second has already been scheduled and
Yeah.
we just haven't seen it yet. So keep an eye out for Kiki Palmer hosting SNL. I think, I mean, obviously, I want her to host every year. I mean, when she
Yeah,
did it
she's
last year,
great.
when she did it a couple
Yeah.
years ago, I'm like, she's a natural. Hello.
Yeah.
Um, and so would very, very much enjoy like a March Kiki Palmer episode. And, according to what she said here, entirely possible.
Could happen. It could
Entirely
happen.
possible.
Yeah.
So those were the big things. I mean, she interviewed Billy Crystal, which I found really funny because I was like,
Mm.
there's no way he knows who this is.
Oh, no, not at all.
He's just like,
No.
someone just shuttled him in there and was like, hey, just do an interview. And he's like, okay. Um, oh, and one more thing. They did like a brief, like 2 minute, um, as one of the commercial breaks, look behind the scenes of like of putting the 50th anniversary show together. And
Mm.
there was a pretty significant segment with Liz Patrick. She was
Oh,
talking about, and like they had her in the control room, and she's talking about, we got so much going on, my binder's falling off the shelf. Like it's so heavy. There's just so much here when we're so excited. So she, I mean, she's gonna be showered in Emmys this year for sure.
Yeah.
And that, that's the big stuff from the DeMoldenberg stream. But overall, like, had a good time.
Yeah.
Is it time for our segment, our look at all the segments? I'll go as fast as I can, but like, I do be fangirling, you know what I'm saying?
I don't expect it to be brief.
You're right. You're right. If anybody knows this show,
Yeah.
this podcast at all,
Don't come here for a quick recap. Uh, I think,
no, we're
yeah,
gonna
let's
explore every aspect.
yeah. Yeah, you want to jump in? Go
Sure.
chronologically?
I think we must go
Yeah.
chronologically. First, we had a performance by. Wait, is this the whole sequence? Okay. Um, we had a performance of Homeward Bound by Paul Simon and Sabrina Carpenter.
I cried. Like I saw Paul Simon and started weeping.
Yep. And
Just
an an instant again. No, nothing was unintentional here. I don't
right.
think, but immediately you see the span of the show
Hmm.
together on stage. You have someone who first appeared on the second episode ever,
Yeah.
and then you have someone who first appeared at the end of the 49th season,
Right. Kind of bookending it to get to 50.
bookending
Yeah.
the whole series.
Right.
Like, you're blowing my mind here. You know what I'm saying?
It's
Like, with the
inspired. Yeah.
choices. It's truly incredible work of art,
Yeah.
just putting them on stage together to open this thing. And then, like, obviously Sabrina starts off with like a killer line
Yeah.
that had everyone. When I heard the crowd reaction to, Paul Simon talks about how he performs the song they're about to sing in
Hmm.
1976 with George Harrison, and Sabrina's like, I was not born then, and neither were my
My
parents.
parents. Yeah.
And both of those beats got huge reactions from the audience, and I'm
Yeah.
like, instantly felt different to me
Yeah.
already. Um,
Yeah. It set it up really. You got a good idea that the audience was like, ready to have a good time.
yeah, for sure. And uh, important performance to Paul Simon,
Hmm.
and since he's so important to the show, it's an important performance to the show. And Sabrina definitely did it justice. It sounded incredible. Both of
Yeah.
them sounded incredible.
Yeah.
And we would go on to see Sabrina Carpenter in like three more sketches,
She was a big part
which,
of it for only having been on the show a couple times.
I
Even
mean, I'm
just once has she
just the
been on it?
one. I
Yeah.
don't think
But
she's appeared since.
she does feel like a
Um,
big part of especially season 50, even though
yeah,
she hadn't been on it till this point.
right. I mean, I firmly think the two things you can put a lot of money on for the remainder of season 50 is a Kiki Palmer hosting and a Sabrina Carpenter host and musical guest.
I think so.
Especially with the release of the Short and Sweet Deluxe not
Yeah.
too long ago.
Yeah.
Because she clearly can handle it. She can
Yeah.
handle hosting.
She's got
Um,
it.
as all the Disney kids can,
I was gonna say
truly.
she went to Disney boot camp, so so
Yeah,
did
for
Kiki.
sure.
Not Disney,
Yeah,
but both of them. Yeah. Went through the ringer.
absolutely wonderful opening moment. It was
Yeah.
it was it was somber though.
Hmm.
I don't know if that like concerned anybody necessarily, but like I get it. I got it. I got the choice, you know.
As a Paul Simon fan, I think that it's hard for his performances to not be somber.
True.
Like his
True.
hits, unless he got up
Hmm.
there and I would have loved it if he'd gotten up there and sang "You Can Call Me Al" with Sabrina
Yeah.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Would have been
But
great.
it's not quite as poignant as Homeward Bound.
For sure. And again, everything was intentional and very carefully selected this time.
I think if
Um,
Mumford and Sons hadn't done the boxer at the concert, it would have been the boxer.
maybe that's why they were allowed to do it at the concert,
Right.
because they had picked this other thing for the special.
Yeah.
But it was a great way to start, because you're talking about coming home, and so many of those people have talked about how it feels like home when they come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Um, just wonderful. And so So then we launch into the opening, and I'm getting ready for like a 2.5, 3 minute opening, like
Mm-hmm.
the SNL 40, because they announced every single person that was going to be coming up throughout the show.
Right, right.
Problem is, I've crunched the numbers, at least how the list exists on Wikipedia, and they announced 80 people on the SNL in the SNL 40 intro.
Mm-hmm.
100 people were credited on Wikipedia with speaking roles.
Yeah.
So that would have been really long. So I
Yes.
think they were just like, just the musical guests is fine.
Yeah.
You'll see. Basically, like, you will see who all is here over the next 3 hours.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, Steve Martin begins the show
Yeah.
with
Obvious choice.
oh, absolutely. He opened the 40th. He's
Yeah.
going to open the
Yeah.
50th.
And then you're
And
sitting there going, well, where's Martin Short?
where's Martin Short? And there he was, just shortly before getting tossed
Yeah,
out.
very
I
briefly.
got a really funny visual, like it struck me funny seeing that Kiki Palmer was sat next to David Letterman.
The seating arrangements were endlessly fascinating to me. I
Oh
could
yeah,
not stop looking at them. I was like,
yep,
who made this? Who put these people next to each other?
yeah,
Like, yeah,
fascinating.
I loved it.
But also like it's just what you got to do. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody in there is famous in some capacity. So
right.
like you're going to get some wild mixes.
Yeah.
Um Loved it. Uh One of my favorite lines was someone born during SNL's first season could reasonably be dead of natural
Natural
causes.
cause.
Um uh and then so again, I'm in the 40 mindset. I'm in the season
Mm-hmm.
40 mindset. So I'm thinking after we do the monologue, we're going to do some kind of tribute, right?
Yeah.
Immediately we go up on Lawrence Welk, which
I
my jaw
didn't,
dropped.
it didn't even really like occur to me that that was,
Hmm.
I don't know if I didn't forget about Lawrence Welk, but I guess it just didn't occur to me that that would happen in this.
No,
Because
not at
I
all.
also like I guess I assumed that right after the monologue we're gonna go all the way back or pretty far back to the beginning of the show. But to just
Uh-huh.
throw out Lawrence Welk, I was like, oh my god, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, another thing that we didn't really touch on when we were talking about like the beginning
Hmm.
of or the overall like messages is that maybe we did kind of touch on it with like the fact that we have done there are certain eras of SNL that have been meticulously covered
Yes.
by anniversary specials. You
Yeah.
know, like the first 15 years have now been covered 4 times
Right. Yeah.
across 4 different anniversary specials. So doing these newer sketches may feel unfair at times when you could have staged like an earlier sketch, but
Hmm.
like immediately we're seeing what they're going for, which is like blending, putting the old inside the new, because we
Right.
have Will Ferrell's Robert Goulet
Yes.
impression
Yeah.
being framed around a Lawrence Welk thing. Um, so just to again, cool decisions, more cool decisions.
I
Couldn't
loved it.
Yeah, couldn't believe it. And like hilarious visuals in here, like the everyone else might have had the night off and just enjoyed the show. The prop team, the
Yeah.
costumes, the set
Yeah.
designers absolutely did not.
Yeah,
Like
they were working overtime.
Keenan, you get that hilarious cutaway of Keenan Thompson as like the contortionist, and you're just like, what? Okay, this is gonna be
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Um, so we go from that, and again, after one sketch, you're still in the SNL 40 mindset, which
Hmm.
is like, who's gonna come out and give an earnest speech, and then we're gonna watch some clips, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Black Jeopardy instead, two brand new sketches now, and at this point, I think is when I finally got in the mode of like, oh my god, they're gonna lean on just new material
Right.
tonight.
We're just focusing on like the last 20-ish years.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I just really fascinating. So, yeah, Black Jeopardy comes up, and Eddie Murphy's playing Tracy Morgan.
The
So
way I screamed when they revealed that Eddie Murphy was Trace, I was like, "Oh my, like of course."
yep.
And
But
he
again,
nailed it.
absolutely. And now you're talking about um another trope, let's say, of the
Mhm.
show being covered, being summarized. Someone doing an impression of someone who's standing right next to them.
Right.
And so, like, this is yes, it's Black Jeopardy, but it's so much more. Like, it
Mhm.
is Lawrence Welk, it is Black Jeopardy, it is Bronx Beat, but it's so much more
It's the
under
anniversary
its
special,
face.
Lawrence Welk. It's yeah.
Yeah.
I still will go back. The one thing that I do watch the most from the 40th is the Celebrity Jeopardy. And so going into this, I was like, do they, because it is an iconic SNL thing, Celebrity Jeopardy with Will Ferrell. And I was like, do they do it if
Hmm.
Norm isn't there to
Mm.
do, Burt Reynolds? And this was
Hmm.
like, I was like, oh, well, of course this is what they would do by way of,
Now.
a game show sketch. Like, it's
Yeah.
the obvious choice now for
Hmm.
like the current era of SNL we're in.
Right. But it's just, again, it's fascinating because it's like these are these are largely sketches that would not have been able to have been honored at the 40th because they
Right.
were either too new or hadn't happened at all.
Right.
And again, putting other things inside of this, again, the mastheads of all of these sketches are summary of the last 10 years, and
Yeah.
then inside of all that we see the rich history.
Right.
So again, like, they were very focused on not rehashing, which I
Yeah.
appreciate.
Definitely.
Um, so yeah, that was an incredible sketch. There was a bit of a blip when we saw we saw uh, Tom Hanks enter as Doug
Before,
a
yeah.
little too early.
Right.
I would be curious to see how that was re-edited on YouTube. But other than that, like, obviously wonderful, and
Yeah.
it's not a Leslie Jones appearance unless she fully breaks.
You
So
can just hear her fully laughing when she's not on
yeah,
camera. And I was like, are you not
yeah.
trying to like you're on mic. Like we can hear
Right.
you.
Yeah,
Just
we
like
know
fully
who this
laughing out
is. Yeah,
loud. I think it's
right.
so funny.
But that's the Bowen Yang way. Like, there have
Yeah.
been a lot of things that Bowen Yang's been in lately where he breaks, and if he knows he's not on camera, he doesn't hide
Just
it,
yeah.
which I kind of think is awesome. Um, but uh, yeah, so that was the Black Jeopardy. For some reason, like, they definitely restaged the Doug moment, the classic
Yeah.
Doug moment. It threw the crowd off, and I haven't
Well,
rewatched it.
I think that
Was
back
it?
when they first I don't know if like the attitude in the room was like thought that that's still like funny.
Yeah,
Like it's
I.
like is I don't know.
It wasn't new either.
It was
Um,
almost exactly the same.
yeah, yeah. And I can't remember. Again, I have to watch the whole thing again. But it was like the first half of the sketch, everybody was really loving it and really
Yeah.
into it, and then something screeched it to a halt in the middle.
I just don't
Um,
yeah, I don't know that that was like the best move for the second beat of that sketch. I didn't hate it. It was just like it wasn't I think I guess if I'm looking at like the whole thing, Eddie Murphy as Tracy Morgan was so surprising that I think everybody was like,
yeah,
"Oh my God, this is awesome!" And then it kind of reverted back into this. You've seen this before, you know this. This is just regular
yeah,
Black
yeah.
Jeopardy. So I mean,
Right.
maybe that was part of it. Maybe people were kind of expecting another like it heightening more, and it maybe
True.
didn't.
True. Yeah.
But
And that's a good point. But I would argue that, like, that Doug moment,
mm,
that particular edition of the sketch is what cemented Black Jeopardy as, like,
right,
a thing. You
that
know,
no,
um,
definitely
they had. I mean, obviously they'd done it like 5 times prior,
right.
and it was good every time. But there was something so striking
Yeah,
about that particular sketch airing right before the 2016 election.
Yeah.
In a way, it was like a meta commentary on how, like, you know, the regular people are, in a sense, pitted against each other through
Right.
messaging, through social media, through whatever, like, bubbles we're in.
Mhm.
And that is what made it so, that particular edition of it so lasting. So
Right.
I do get the attempt to put him back in the game. Um, the other thing, I want to go back to the Lawrence Welk thing, because there was
Mhm.
another moment where I was like, I would have cut that for sure. And it was like Dunice drumming on Kim Kardashian's.
Yeah, I didn't love that. And it went
that
on
was
for
like
way too long.
that was like a little bit too 15 years ago, but what I
Yeah.
did see, I thought after it went like 10 seconds too long, that's when it did get a laugh out of me, when it overstayed. Because
Overstayed its
like if it
welcome,
had just been
yeah.
a quick cutaway and
Yeah,
then they
then
were
you're
like,
like,
"How that was funny, right?" But she went on for like 30 seconds and I'm like,
right.
"Okay. All right." So everybody I guess knows that this is kind of silly, you know.
I guess maybe it's not super nice to say, but like I don't know if I consider Kim Kardashian part of like the fabric of SNL.
Well, that's true. That's for
She
sure
has
true.
hosted one time. I'm not entirely sure like why. Out of all the people they could have picked, like I don't know, did she need to be in a sketch? That's just maybe
Probably
that's
not.
my personal opinion, seeping
Yeah.
in. But I was like, did she need to be the third person in the Lawrence Welk? Like, I don't know.
And there were some of those decisions that I think came down to someone had written one joke and it was like, this joke only works if this person is
Yeah,
playing this role.
that's true.
Another thing that I know Meryl found strange that I was like, oh yeah, I guess it's kind of weird, was Scarlett Johansson playing Audrey in the musical sketch, um, because it was like, well, we've seen Scarlett already so much tonight,
Scarlett
and now
was
she's in another
actually
one.
supposed to be Audrey in a Little Shop movie that got shelved. So
Really?
that
So
was a
that's
weird
even
little
deeper,
thing too. Yeah.
right? That's even deeper than why they
But yeah, she
had
was
her
in
do
it.
that too.
Having
Yeah.
the celebrities that popped up more than once, I was always like, okay. It
Hmm.
was just interesting who they had pop up more than once, as opposed to,
Yeah.
everybody gets a turn, which, I don't
Right.
really care that much who's getting to do what, but it was just
That's the thing,
interesting.
is like, what was presented was incredible,
Yeah.
but you did have a sense of like, I who all did we see, like, from the original cast, for example? Like, there was no reason Jane Curtin couldn't have come on
Right.
and sat next to Bill Murray,
Right. It
you
was,
know,
yeah. It was interesting that Jane Curtin was the only original cast member that wasn't
that didn't show
in,
up.
that didn't,
Or she was there, but
she was there, she didn't get
she
any
wasn't in
like
anything.
airtime.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, Lorraine got the big
She
pre-tape,
got
which honestly is
Chad.
like such an incredible performance from her. And you know, it it was already so emotional watching. I know I'm skipping ahead, but like, it was already so emotional watching her do that. But
Hmm.
like, knowing so many of these people have gone before, and we have
Yeah.
these sketches that we hold on to. One was played yesterday, which was "Don't Look Back in Anger," where the
That
whole
really, yeah. That really got me.
comedic, yeah, the whole like comedic conceit of that sketch was that, um, this is insane to think that John Belushi's going to live this long, peaceful life, because that's not who he is.
Right.
And he didn't.
Yeah.
So that sketch really lands differently now that he's gone.
Yes.
And I don't I don't wish it, I don't hope for it, but we're going to be watching that Lorraine Newman
Yeah.
SNL50 sketch a lot. Um, in again, I
Right.
want her to live forever, but in the
Right.
eventuality that she does pass, that's going to be a very, very meaningful sketch, and honestly, already is. Like,
Yeah.
it's a just like, immediately right off the bat when she's asking for that private moment in the studio, I'm already like, getting choked up about it
Yeah.
at the
Mhm.
second the whole sketch starts. It was just, oh my gosh, it was so good. Again, the decisions that were made,
Yeah.
um, just endlessly blew my mind. You know, I it was fantastic. Um, but like with Kim Kardashian getting drummed on and Doug coming in, that's the SNL way, baby. Some of these things land and
Yeah.
some of them don't.
It
Do you
can't
know?
all be it can't all be up. You know, we do have to
Yeah.
every so often, yeah.
It makes you appreciate the moments where Meryl Streep talks about The Devil Wears Nada
Right.
when you have the drumming on Kim Kardashian.
Exactly.
Um, so then now we get a familiar esque
Mhm.
SNL40 segment in the montage about physical comedy. This was so interesting to me because again, you go into this special thinking like, all right, so there's a laundry list of things we know we're going to see. We're going to see
Yeah.
a Weekend Update supercut. We're going to see an Impressions supercut. We're going to see host monologues. We're going to see pre-tapes, commercials. Like there, we know that there's going to be a lot of clip packages, and we
Right.
think we know what they're going to be about. This one comes up and is so specific
I
and
loved it.
so cool
Yeah.
because if you think about it, like I don't know how much you know about like the early times of SNL, like the first couple of seasons, when Chevy Chase was on, he did not say live from New York, it's Saturday night, unless he first did some giant pratfall stunt.
Yeah.
So it literally was like the show can't start until Chevy Chase eats off the side of the stage. So again, you're talking about something that like maybe wouldn't have been first thought, but is so essential
Yes.
to why SNL is so captivating sometimes because it's like, wow, Molly Shannon is literally doing all these stunts in front of us
All
live.
like when that clip of her falling into all those chairs, I was like,
Yeah.
you can't fake that. That must hurt so
Oh,
bad.
without a
And they're
doubt.
just like throwing their bodies around and it is I appreciate them so much for it, you know?
Crazy. They talked about one of the sketches in the SNL book, the Live from
Mhm.
New York book, which again I would hope they re-up it for the 50th. I don't know if they're going to now, but uh, they had put um, they put a story in there about like a particular. It was like the second time that they did Mary Catherine Gallagher. She was supposed to crash through a wall.
Mhm.
That had like loose bricks in it. Before the sketch started, all the bricks fell out, and so there's this giant gaping hole in the set. Everybody knows what's going to happen because the wall's half
Yeah.
gone, but she was she got so nervous and so anxious that I think that sketch was close to not happening
Mm.
because she was worried about like these bricks are padded, that's what's supposed to break my fall, and now it's all
Right.
busted through. I don't know what to do, and I believe that's how the story goes, but that story is in the book and the clip was in the package.
Mm.
Because it's quick, but you can see there's a
Right.
moment before she crashes through the wall where the wall's already broken. The sketch started like that. That was nothing that happened in the sketch itself. But yeah, just like again, I'm still thinking like, okay, this is the first of many, right?
Yeah.
Little did I know at the beginning of the show we were only going to see two more of these like montages. Um, just incredible that they like didn't lean on that this time.
Yeah, they said, yeah, they were like, yeah, we'll do clips, but it's not going to be what you think. It's going to be something, in this case, so specific. So, like, look at this one type of thing that we do. Here's a bunch of
Hmm.
that. That
Yeah.
you wouldn't necessarily point to it and be like, well, SNL is known for its physical comedy. That's probably not most people's go to, but it is. You watch that clip and you go, actually, you know what? Yeah, that is like a really
Hmm.
big part of it. Is these people
Yeah.
just throwing themselves around the set, breaking things, and
Yep.
spraying
It
ranch
was
in their
fantastic.
face.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
The
Um,
physical comedian of our time, Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, I'm telling you.
No
And
one is doing it like her.
my roommate and I were talking about that this morning. We were like, and he asked me if Melissa McCarthy appeared last night. And I'm like,
No,
no, she
I
actually
had.
didn't.
I was making a list of people I was surprised to not see, and she was number one on my list.
Yeah.
Where was she? What?
Well, but again, if we talk about all of this, everything in the 50th season being presented as one product,
Hmm.
we got not just Melissa McCarthy, but a physical comedy Melissa McCarthy moment
Yeah,
during the Five Timer sketch
right. She was just
earlier
here
this
doing
year.
this. Yeah,
Right.
crashing
So
through a wall or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's another instance where I would argue like there was a tribute to that. It
Yes,
just
we
didn't
did see
happen
it. Yeah.
in this particular thing. So, but yeah, oh my god. Again, I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch the whole thing tonight. I
I
just
know.
am.
I
I
watched
got
a
no plans.
couple parts of it
Yeah,
this morning already.
yeah, good. And then Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy.
I was
The
surprised.
I was surprised, but the audience reaction to that again, yet again, made me a little bit emotional because it's
Yeah,
like there were people, I'm sure there were people who were there from the early 90s who did not expect, of all things, to see a Deep Thoughts
right.
today. I heard somebody go, "Aww,"
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my
It's
god,
probably
this means
Conan.
so much to everybody, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, just so good. And he voiced it himself. He probably
Yeah.
wrote it himself. Like it was so good. And then how how did you feel when you realized we were in for a third Domingo in the
Uh,
last 6 months?
first thought was first thought was dread. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Because if we're looking at it as 50 years of SNL, this sketch happened 6 months ago. Not even.
Yeah.
What was
No,
it would have
yeah,
been in
it's
like
like four.
October? Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, you can't put this sketch in here. It's brand new. And then
Yeah.
I ended up loving it. I had a great
Uh-huh.
time. I'm hoping that it closes the book on Domingo.
That would be great, actually.
Because I don't really know how do you can't heighten it past that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess first thought I was like, please, God, no.
I know.
But I ended up having a really good time. What about you?
I was just like,
First thought.
that was my reaction. I was just like,
I
really?
knew you knew they were going to
You
do something
sure?
with it. I didn't know if they were going
Yeah.
to give it its own sketch. But yeah,
Yeah.
once Martin Short said Kelsey, I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, we're back to this. Yeah. I think they did heighten it for sure. Like
Yeah.
there were a couple of different songs performed. The groomsmen got up and like did a performance this time. Um, got Andy Samberg. First
My
appearance for Andy
sister,
Samberg. Yeah.
my whole family was watching it and they were using me as Google the whole time. They would
Uh-huh.
text me be like, "Who's that? Who's that
Uh-huh.
person?" My sister texts me and goes, "Who is the guy next to Andy Samberg?" And it
Referencing
was
Kyle
well, it
Mooney.
was I have to hope she meant Kyle because it was Bowen
Uh-huh.
and then Andy and then Kyle,
Yeah.
and my heart just broke for the youth. I was like,
Yeah.
that is Kyle Mooney. I got
Yeah.
emotional. I got emotional when the four of them showed up and Beck and Kyle were together again. I was like, oh
Standing
my
next to each.
God,
Yeah.
Beck and
Yep.
Kyle. And then for her to
Uh-huh.
go, who is that? I was like, don't talk to me. I'm putting my phone on
It's
Do Not
like, come on.
Disturb. Don't ask me. Google it, dude. Like,
And that's when
disrespectful
you knew
question.
this event was for you and not for
I was
anybody
literally,
else.
I was like, okay, everybody needs to leave me alone now. No more
Yeah,
casual viewers.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, like I think it worked, especially like because this whole thing started with Ariana Grande singing to
Yeah,
Sabrina
it was
Carpenter,
very full
with Sabrina
circle.
Carpenter singing Wicked.
Hmm.
It that added to the feeling that you're describing, which is like it feels like we've closed the book on Domingo, a nice
Well, and
trilogy.
yeah, everybody has their person. Loved Pedro in it.
Yeah,
I love that Pedro and Bad Bunny like
yeah,
love to be paired up. I think that's
yep,
so cute. They're always
yeah,
like, yeah, if you're doing it, I'll do it.
yep,
This was kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, yes, here's again my this, and this is not saying it wasn't good, but the quality over quantity thing.
uh-huh,
Like, do I want Domingo? No. Do I want Domingo with 15 celebrities I love? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
take it. Yeah.
I'm gonna take Domingo of Andy Samberg and Beck and Kyle and Martin. Like, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
I forgot to explore this point when we were talking about like the macro
Hmm.
trends of the night, but looking at the list of writers that came up at the end of the special. First of all, it was like 3 times the length of like
Right.
a normal SNL
Yeah.
episode because so many people came back to write on this.
Right.
Um, the uh, the because we're talking about these sketches that maybe came up in the last 10, 15 years that don't necessarily on their face speak to the entire history of the show, but then having a lot going on underneath. You got to look at the layer of this, where um, you can look at this like instead of a retrospective. They clearly didn't want to go that route. Instead of
Right.
a retrospective, this was more like all the kids get to come back to the playground
Hmm.
and have recess one more time. Like, you have people who haven't written on the show since 1993 who still keep up with the show and go and come back to the building and go, you know what I have always wanted to work on since you guys did it? Alien abduction.
Right.
These sketches that are such fun frames
Hmm.
for these writers to like play in the sandbox with.
Yeah.
And I think that is what took me a lot of the episode to really like wrap my head around, because it was like, yeah, this is a lot of new stuff, but there could be like Tina Fey could be a huge fan of that Domingo sketch
Right.
and wanted to try it herself. You
Had a
know,
couple
Dennis
jokes to pitch in there.
McNicholas,
Yeah.
yeah, Dennis McNicholas could have seen the Mulaney musicals
Hmm.
and gone, I've got some ideas for that.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
you just don't know like how all of this stuff kind of developed. But again, packing it packing the new surface with the old depth
Right.
was the theme of the night. Um, Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just excellent work by all. So yeah, hopefully that was the that was the Domingo
True.
trilogy.
Yeah, because I don't think that you can heighten past that.
Right, right. And you have to respect SNL's, their intention is to do what's popular. We heard Lorne Michaels literally say that in the
Yeah.
SNL documentary. If
Yeah.
they know they've got something, they're gonna do it.
That's why we
The
got three Domingos in 4 months.
Exactly. We, as slightly longer fans of the show,
Hmm.
might not really need Domingo, but there's a whole swath of like 16 to 19-year-olds who probably just got introduced to this show through Domingo.
It's a big reason why my sisters were watching it, I think. I think they would have
Yeah.
watched it anyway, but that Domingo was in there was like definitely for like their generation.
And, could be another subtle message that like, yes, this is a 50-year-old show. Yes, this is for every fan of the show, and that includes people who started watching 6 months ago.
Right. Yeah.
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 So, it's easy for me to go like to be like, all right, cool it with the Domingo. I don't think it needed the anniversary special treatment, but the more I've kind of reflected on it, the more I've been
Right.
like, no one did this on their own necessarily.
Yeah.
It wasn't Lauren saying like you have to put a Domingo in. This was, I mean, we saw the picture of the writers' room. This was a group effort, and I'm sure a lot of these people came in with like ideas that they wanted that
Yeah.
could still work today.
And we can't
Um,
say that it's a special for 50 years of the show without including what happened in the 50th year. We don't just
exactly.
exclude that because it's new.
Right.
But yeah, they got me back
Yeah.
on their side with Domingo. As long as
For
I don't,
sure.
as long as I don't see
Yeah.
it again.
You just get concerned when it first fades up, and you're like, oh my god, this looks
Like
like
I was like, okay,
Domingo.
wedding, what's it gonna be? And then I was like, okay. And then I texted you and I was like, all right, here we
Already?
go.
Yep. But ultimately, another good moment.
Yeah.
Got the Q&A monologue. I didn't think they would do this again. um,
I love.
because of the SNL 40th, but
This is one of the ones
this
I
was
rewatched
perfect.
today. I That Julia Louis-Dreyfus bit is an all-timer. Are you kidding me?
That was another transcendent. I was floating watching her talk to that damn dog.
And the older one next to her is Tina Fey. I burst out. I was crying laughing. And
Oh
then the
my
Adam
god!
Driver
Because
reveal. And like
yep,
just oh my God. All time.
I love this long-standing, like, it's like this beef that
Yes.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus
Yes.
and Tina Fey have manufactured over
Yes.
the years. Where it's like, there was the moment on Late Night with Conan O'Brien where um, Julia steals Tina Fey's Emmy, and
Yes.
then there's in the 30 Rock live show,
Right.
um, she's playing flashback Liz Lemon, and Jack says, "Why are you so much better looking in your memory?"
Yes.
And so there's always this like tension with Tina Fey
I
and
love it.
and Julia Louis Dreyfus, not to mention the fact that Julia Louis Dreyfus is 10 years older than Tina Fey. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Fully
it's just
like
one of
yeah.
those just
It's
great
just
joke.
another thing in the Q&A. One of the things that sticks out the most to me from the 40th was the
Uh-huh.
John Lovitz joke,
The
you
yeah, the
know,
bit.
where they kept saying that he was dead and they included him in the in memoriam and they would cut to him.
Yeah.
So them doing like another little John Lovitz thing, I was like, perfect, excellent, love it, great.
More John Lovitz bits, please. Yeah.
The
Um,
Ray Romano, Al Sharpton.
Perfect.
I
And they were
saw Al
so into
Sharpton in
it.
the audience and I was like, Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
And then I was rewarded for noticing.
Well, he was one of the pre-announced guests.
Yeah.
Like, there was a whole group that they put out ahead of time. I think a group of like 40 that they
Hmm.
had announced would be a part of the special, and he was one of them. So I thought he'd do more than that, but that was exactly how I wanted to see him, just
That's
being
all I
called on.
need. That's all I really need from Reverend Al Sharpton.
Here's, uh, I'll go back and say one other like macro thing
Hmm.
over the whole at every turn. I had these moments where I was like, "Oh my god, everybody on camera tonight still got it.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
missed a single beat.
No.
Like Amy Poehler and Maya Rudolph looked like they never left. Mike Myers fell
Yeah.
right back into it.
It was so
Lorraine Newman
effortless.
in the pre-tape
Hmm.
was borderline an Emmy-winning performance.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
mean, like everybody was at a 10.
Yeah.
Perfect, just perfect performances. I'm like, I want to know everything about it. I want to know who wrote the dog bit. I want to know who
Yeah.
wrote John Lovitz in the American Girl store. I want to know it all
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just, they're inspired. I leave this event having like 15, 20 more quotes
Hmm.
seared into my brain, and I
Zach
didn't think it was
Galifianakis
possible.
in that headscarf.
Yes.
The part that I did really love Fred Armisen's bit. That one really felt like it was for like the writers, his whole
Yes.
did Lauren read why did he cut
Yeah.
my sketch holding it? That felt pretty like inside baseball, but I really loved it. I thought it was great.
Everyone in that room is inside baseball, so they
Yeah.
would like that plays to the
Yeah.
crowd in a
That's
sense,
your yeah.
Just the Q&A. Oh my god, Donna.
Oh my God, that part was
How did I
incredible.
how was that not the first thing?
Yeah.
And she is high on my list of people who I'm watching this going like they're at the top. They are
Yeah.
giving it their all. Her Jason Momoa
Yes.
like
Just
punchline
right.
was executed perfectly.
Excellent.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that she got that moment finally.
Yes.
We've had a lot of good like finally they're getting their day in the sun moments from
Mm-hmm.
people. She finally got one tonight. The staff nurse got one
Yeah.
later on. We'll see in the Adam Sandler song.
Yeah. He shouted out
Um,
a lot of crew in that
Leo
one.
Yoshimura, the production designer, has
Mm-hmm.
has been on camera in Star Trek sketches before because he used to play Sulu
Yeah.
back in 1977. Um, it just I love those moments where they get to do it, and then you realize like they're pretty talented too. Like
Yeah.
they've been around comedy. Donna Richards been dressing hosts for almost 30 years. Of course, she's gonna get how to execute that
Yeah, she's
Jason
got
Momoa
the beats
punchline
of it down. Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just oh my god,
That
that
was a
was
great moment.
as many good moments as were packed into the Q&A segment. That might have been the best,
Mm-hmm.
maybe tied with Julie Louis-Dreyfus and the
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm here for him. He's blind.
I,
Okay, so
did you watch Arrested Development?
yes,
And
I
because that
saw
that
someone,
also was like my brain was like, oh my god.
and that dog looked really similar too.
I saw a picture of it and someone was like literally same like vest, same
Yep.
dog. Like yeah, and then
And
yeah,
again, nothing was an accident tonight,
right.
last night. We
Yeah.
have to assume that. So somebody picked that dog
Yeah, out of
on
all the dogs,
purpose.
yeah, out of all the dogs they could have picked for that, they
It
picked that
looked
one.
exactly like the one she worked with on Arrested Development. Yeah, like
Yeah.
again, I'm soaring
Yeah.
right by this
Yeah.
point in the broadcast. Um, and then a new digital short. I think it's your turn on this one because you know you and digital shorts.
Oh, I mean, you knew there would be one because at the
Hmm.
40th we had the one about breaking, which I love, and I
Yes.
don't know if you can even watch anywhere. Well, now you probably can. For a long time, it was not anywhere, which was
Oh, really?
heartbreaking to
Okay.
me. Um, but yeah, this one was awesome. It was really fun that like Bowen was the second lead in it. I thought that was
Yeah.
nice because I feel like up until this point, and even in this special as a whole, you don't get a ton of current cast just
Hmm.
because there's so many people. So I thought it was nice that like Bowen got kind of spotlight in this one.
Right.
And then yeah, I mean it was funny. Of course it was funny. It was a digital short. Like, do I think that Bill Hader was home watching, going like, "Oh yeah, that's why I'm not there." Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
I do.
Exactly.
I think that was for
And
Bill Hader.
I know, honestly, yeah. I think it's time that I issue my formal apology to all the stans.
Yeah.
You were right to panic. Bill Hader was not in attendance. That wasn't confirmed until Friday the 14th. And
And
obviously, like,
yeah.
he wasn't a part of any of this, which is a bummer. I don't know why. And, you know, in a way, if you think about it as like a more, the idea of this SNL digital short, everyone on SNL has had anxiety.
Right.
Was that Andy's, um, could that have been Andy's plea to Bill Hader, like, hey, it's really okay. You don't have
When
to do
yeah.
anything.
When I saw it start and realized what it's about, I really was hoping that like maybe Bill pops up in one of the, because
Hmm.
they had a montage of a bunch of people and like Yorma and Akiva were there, clearly not at SNL, but sent in, I was like hoping maybe Bill would kind of pop up in that context, but
Hmm.
he didn't, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I
it's just
get
like,
it. It's just sad because he is such a big part of the last,
mhm,
15-ish years of the show or however long ago. But I get it. It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. It makes me realize, like, I mean, obviously we know, we've heard in interviews that like he went through it doing that show. Like
He like deeply hates live TV and like, yeah.
yeah, performed with panic attacks, performed with
Right.
migraines.
I do
Like
not blame him for not, but I do wish he had just gone and sat in the audience.
yeah,
You don't have to be in
yeah,
anything, but like it would have been nice. But Dan Aykroyd wasn't there either, so
right. Now, I did read there was an important distinction between Dan Aykroyd and Bill
yeah,
Hader. Bill Hader declined his invitation.
right.
They said that Dan Aykroyd was unable to attend.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means he's in poor health. I don't know
I
or
don't
if there was
know.
some travel complications.
Yeah, I don't know because Dan Aykroyd was tweeting about the show and everything. So like
Uh huh.
he was, I mean, he was obviously like, I don't know if it was a health issue. Yeah, they didn't really specify. They said he was like unable to attend They did say, who was it? There was Dick Ebersol, maybe. They did say he wasn't
Hmm.
going to be there due to health issues. But,
Hmm.
who knows? We'll probably never know the real reason.
It is a bummer. It's a bummer. You want to see as many, especially of the original cast, standing together as you possibly can.
Right.
Um, but I get it. Stuff comes up, things
Yeah, but
happen.
the digital short I loved it. It was fun. It was a good time. Is it the best one they've ever done? No, but like I don't care. Because it's for the 50th, so it had to be about SNL in a way that the digital shorts are not about SNL.
Exactly, and again, it showed a depth,
Yeah.
like, the S, because I think again, I might rehash this a lot, which is something that they clearly didn't want to do, was rehash. That's where I come in. Uh, they talked about they talked about breaking in the 40th. They
Right.
talked about impressions. They talked about all this stuff. This is a this is a certain depth that might only be for the people in the room.
It did
Um,
feel a little bit more geared towards the actual cast as opposed to the audience at home,
yeah, but still
facilitated by
worked
the
for
cast.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I loved
still
it.
worked for the crowd too. Um, and then we go into Weekend Update, which was incredible.
Yeah.
Again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. When Colin Jost and Michael Che leave SNL, we will finally realize just how essential they have been
Yeah.
this last 10 years.
I don't think they get well, and that's the thing because I feel like lately I've been seeing a lot of people being like Seth Meyers is the Weekend Update host.
Hmm.
He's the pinnacle of it. And I'm sitting there and going, well, at the time I don't think people thought that.
Let me
I
be
think
honest with
that's
you.
something that came later.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's a lot of it's a lot of nostalgia talking.
Well, it's like
From
younger people saying it too. So it's
Yeah,
like he was the update host when I was watching when I was younger. So like, yeah, obviously I'm gonna think that he was great at it.
yeah. I didn't think Seth was the greatest of all time in the moment,
Hmm.
and I still don't think he was up there in terms of like the best of the best.
Right, right.
Um, I like, but I so that's what makes it when I think about like Colin Jost and Michael Che and how much I've loved Weekend Update
Yeah.
on the first watch when live. I'm like, this is only gonna get better with age.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna be we're going to see just how difficult Weekend Up, and I'm not saying this to curse whoever comes next,
Right,
but
but
we're
it's
gonna see
yeah.
just how difficult Weekend Update is once Michael Che and Colin Jost do decide to leave.
It's big shoes to fill, and I don't think people recognize that right now to the
Yeah.
extent that maybe they should.
For sure. Yeah, my only qualm with Weekend Update is that Jane Curtin didn't roll out.
Yeah, that
Um,
was just, I wonder if she just didn't want to. Because I have
that's
to imagine that if she wants to be in something, they let her.
Yeah,
She's not
that's the
getting
other
cut.
layer we have to look at here. Like for everybody who didn't appear,
Yeah.
Jane Curtin is she was one of the older members of the cast, if I remember
Yeah, she's got
correctly,
to
of the original
be,
cast. She's almost 80.
yeah.
She might have made that decision on her own
Hmm.
as someone who is essentially retired from
And
acting.
she did update during the 40th.
She'd update during the 40th, but
So,
she's
yeah,
10 years older. I
right.
don't know that we got to remember that like it's ultimately up to these performers if they feel like they're up for it
I
in the
don't
moment.
imagine that Lauren went to her earlier in the day and said, Jane, we're cutting your update piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so you have to assume
Right.
that, like, that was her choice not to
Hmm. Yeah.
be in it in
But
some way.
but what did make it on was very good.
Hmm.
Even though I saw the OJ joke coming from a
Well,
mile
yeah,
away,
but you
it was
gotta,
still good and
yeah.
yeah, needed to happen. Um,
The way
uh,
I transcended when Cecily came out, because that is one of my all time favorite update features.
Oh, it's
And
so
she
good.
stopped doing it towards
Uh-huh.
the like she didn't do it for her whole time on the show.
No.
She stopped doing it,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when, but
Hmm.
and I mean same with Bobby doing Drunk Uncle. Like he was on the show after he stopped doing it. And those are two that I really, really, really love. So
Yep. And talking about more recent characters that maybe older writers would have had fun with.
yeah,
Um, these are laugh riot
right.
in terms of like as much as you can pack in a writing sense.
Yeah, it's just
Those two
jokes.
characters can get dense, and
Yeah,
I think that's fun
yeah,
for writers.
right.
And so I think that's why you saw a lot of these. I was, again, I told everyone I was talking about this with, I was like, what's the over under that Cecily Strong pops during the broadcast at some point?
She
Because
looked
she is so
so
pregnant.
pregnant. I thought she wasn't gonna
She's
be there. I thought she would
she's
have to skip
close
it.
too.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I mean, man, she powered through. She
yeah,
did it, and it
she
was
killed it.
really good. Really good. Yeah, Drunk Uncle had some incredible lines. I'm glad Seth Meyers got to come back, and then the Bill Murray like ranking
That
countdown.
was yeah,
He was as good as ever
yeah.
during that
I
thing, and
think
then
you are right that we might see a Bill Murray hosting gig
yeah, there's something else,
sometime.
folks, that you can put money on. Kiki Palmer hosting, Sabrina Carpenter hosting musical guest. And then I don't know if we talked about it on the last episode, but it was this week. Bill Murray was on Seth Meyers,
Hmm.
and he'd talked about the fact that like he fully called Lorne and was like, if there's room, if there's an ability,
Yeah.
I think I would be down to come back and host this year.
I think it would be good after that. I mean, I
Yep,
think, yeah,
he still got
I'd
it
be excited to see it.
right. So just so good,
I was
so good.
his ranking as he got closer to number one. I thought surely he was gonna put himself.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought the joke was leading up to like I changed my mind. I put
uh huh,
myself at number one, and then to
yeah.
have it be his brother, I was like, oh my God.
His brother who did like a year of Weekend
Right,
Update or
right.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. Um, yeah, just just perfect. And but another thing that bugged me: no mention of Cecily Strong as Weekend Update anchor.
They do pretend like that never happened. And she
Yeah,
did
because
it for what, I guess,
a year,
a
a year,
year,
a
yeah.
full season. Yeah,
Yeah, because
39
towards the end of Seth's and then into Che.
into Colin.
Oh, into
She so
Colin. Right, right.
so Seth Meyers leaves in February of 2014 to go
That's
do late
right.
night,
Because
and
Colin was
then
Che wasn't there. He wasn't at the show yet.
right,
I don't think.
Michael Che had gotten picked up at the Daily Show.
Right.
And what we then learned is I think that they had kind of in a way orchestrated that where
Hmm.
like, Michael Che he'd been on late night all the time. He was like a successful stand-up, obviously, and had written on SNL. But in terms of getting him on camera in a news environment, I'm wondering if that
Yeah.
wasn't something of a collaboration between The Daily Show and SNL.
See how he fares
Like
in
screen
that.
screen
Yeah.
test him
Pretty
essentially.
much. Yeah. Okay, so yeah,
But
Cecily and Colin. Right.
yeah, so
And
it
then
was it
Colin
was
and Che.
Cecily and Colin for like 6 episodes, I want to say. And I think Cecily didn't appear to have enjoyed being the Weekend Update anchor.
No.
I think she preferred the character work, but I respect the decision to not go whole hog on a completely different single anchor
Right, to
in
just
the
go straight
middle of a
from
season.
Seth to Colin I don't
Right.
think that would have gone well.
No, I don't
I
think
think
so
they
either.
needed Cecily to kind of keep the audience,
Hmm.
to walk the audience through the transition.
And if they know that they're pairing Colin with Michael with a partner, if we know we're
Hmm.
going back to a partner Weekend Update,
Right.
now you don't have to go from like seeing Colin alone to seeing Colin with a partner. You're already used to this flow of
Yeah,
Colin and somebody. Um,
definitely.
so yeah, very interesting. Just handing off of the baton 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So. Uh, just perfect. Again, like not really a retrospective. Bill Murray's was pretty retrospective.
Yeah, but I think it wasn't just like here's a clip show of
Hmm.
all the anchors ranked
Yeah,
from best to like it was yeah, he got a little creative with it.
yeah, for sure. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Now, moment we've all been waiting for, Close Encounters.
Hmm.
This was fantastic. And now I'm realizing like the music performances aren't in this breakdown that we're
Yeah.
looking at, but we'll get there. Um, uh, when I mean, obviously, I'm thinking like I get it, and I get they want to create a scenario for someone to break. I thought
Right.
fully we were going to see Ryan Gosling again, for
I'm surprised
example.
that he wasn't there.
Yeah. But when you add that extra layer of Colleen's mom also
Yeah.
getting abducted, and then you're like, oh, who did they pick for that? You're thinking, like, again, an old SNL name is going to
Maybe it's
come and
Jane
be in
Curtin.
this. Maybe
Like,
it's Jane Curtin.
yeah.
Maybe it's like maybe Nora Dunn wanders out there.
Right.
Like you don't know.
Yeah.
And or Julia Sweeney. I saw Julia Sweeney was standing in Good Nights. Like
Hmm.
that you there a lot could have happened right then. And with it being Meryl Streep making
Yeah.
her first appearance on SNL and
I couldn't believe that was
killing
her
it.
first. I can't believe she's never been on it. That was like so, that was maybe the most shocking thing of all of it. I saw,
Yep,
people on Twitter saying, "Oh, Meryl's very first time." I was like, "Surely not."
it's
But
true.
yeah.
She's at the top. Anytime you see an SNL or an article saying like 10 people you wouldn't believe haven't
Yeah.
hosted SNL, she's at the top of the list every time.
Maybe
Like
she
I
maybe she's
I
scheduled for
hope
something.
I hope we had Martin Short over Christmas. Maybe we have the wife later in the year. The
She
wife.
finally maybe she went to his Christmas show, sat in the audience, and he said, "You know what? Actually, this seems pretty fun. Maybe I'll take a crack at it."
Right. I could make a living here. Um and obviously she showed us that she absolutely can.
Yeah.
The This Devil Wears Nada is in my brain forever. Again, like I said at the beginning, the line about um
The open casket.
the open casket funeral,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
again, I transcended. I
Her
transcended.
the turn of her and Pedro to face each other across Kate,
Hmm.
like that whole like piece. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about physical comedy.
I'm telling you, it just keeps coming. Just
And
keeps
I
coming.
guess if you can't get Ryan Gosling in there to break, Pedro is the next one on your list if you want someone to break during your sketch.
Hmm.
He's your guy.
And someone who is just fun to
Yeah.
poke in the crotch. I'd have
She
fun.
really I thought that Kate got up in there with like Ryan Gosling, but like she
Hmm.
really got up in there with Pedro and
She
Woody
was in there.
Harrelson. She
Yep.
I was like, "Oh, can you put this on TV?" Like it's
That's
Sunday
that's the other
night.
thing you got to remember.
It's not
It's prime
11:30.
time still.
Yeah.
It's not late night. So I don't think everybody at NBC was just like, do
Betsy
whatever
was
you need
like,
to
"I don't
do.
know."
Yeah, Betsy went home. She's like, I don't need to see this. Okay, so now we're getting to the Chad sketch, which like again on its surface, when you realize this is going to develop into a Chad sketch,
Yeah.
you're like,
I was like,
do we
"Really,
need
Chad?"
to? Um, but like another fun one to write for. I know that's been
Yeah.
my point for a lot of these, but also just so nice. I
Yeah.
mean, like again, immediately you get a little emotional when Lorraine comes by and is just like, "Can I just have a moment in the
Right.
studio?" Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Like again, we've already talked about it, but just a fantastic, and again, moments that had me laughing, like the when Lorraine asks for just some quiet because he keeps drilling into the set. So then he's like, okay, and then drops the drill from like shoulder height. I'm like, that's
And
so
then
funny.
the
That's just
door.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just these little, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that fully did make me, we know how I feel about these musicals. But let me tell you my journey, because I put in one prediction last week when we talked about this
Yeah.
coming up. I thought we were gonna see a Nate Bargatze Washington's Dream
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
sketch, but with Lorne, with him playing Lorne,
Right.
and him telling the cast like what this show is gonna
Mm.
be, um, which would have worked too for sure.
Right.
But um, so when they fade up on this sketch and it says New York City, 1975,
Mm.
I was like, did they
Yeah.
do it? They do my idea? I got so excited for like 3 seconds, and then
Right.
when I saw John Mulaney, I knew exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, you knew right
Um,
away.
yeah,
And
but
I had the same Domingo thing. I was like, really? We're
yeah,
doing this? But
yep,
I loved it.
yep, and I love this one.
They won me over.
This was really good. And okay, so one thing that stood out to me was like when there's a streaker that comes by
Okay.
when they're talking about when it's in the 70s part of it, and
Yeah.
he jumps across and like waves something. And he's got a trench coat and like a Speedo on. I was like, A, that person's in incredible shape. They looked great. But B, I think it was Alex Moffat.
It was.
And you know
No,
what?
was it?
It was.
It was Alex Moffat. Yeah. I
It
was
was.
surprised to see him.
So he's like yoked
Yeah,
apparently,
apparently.
and yeah, just did that one brief like jump across the stage
Yeah.
as the streaker, and then
Yep.
obviously waved the flag at the end. So that was a really cool like him being there moment. Um, G.E. Smith,
Yeah,
my
that was
jaw
cool.
dropped
That was cool.
when we got a little moment with G.E. Smith. Um, very interesting. And then him next to Paul Schaefer.
Yeah.
Oh my
Nathan
God, Paul
Lane,
Rudd, Kenan Thompson, Nathan Lane was cool. He hasn't been
that
on in a
was
bit,
yeah, that was
and
fun.
so again, like, is he essential to the fabric of SNL? Maybe not, but with the joke that they wanted to tell, which
It had
was
yeah,
the song from The Lion King. I can't
it
remember
had to
it
be
off the top
him,
of my
yeah.
head. Hakuna Matata.
Right.
Um, uh, it's hilarious coming from him.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. Um,
I
oh
I always say with these, every time this pops up, I always sit there and go, they are out of songs. They have to be out of songs.
yeah,
And this time they were, because they circled back and they reused a bunch of songs that they've done before, which I'm sure was part of it because it's again, same with Domingo. This felt to me like they kind of full circled
closed
that,
it.
and I'm hoping we close the book on these Mulaney things and we don't get them anymore because that felt like a really nice way to kind of package all of that up.
I was gonna
But
say
they did, yeah.
exactly that.
But
Yeah.
they did circle back and reuse a couple songs that we have heard before.
Yep. Yep. Which um, uh, like I didn't mind this one. Oh,
No,
what was cool is like we ended up seeing Lin-Manuel Miranda as Alexander Hamilton
I
again
was laughing. I said, "Wow, two Lin-Manuel as Hamilton in a month."
in 2 episodes. He was in the Timothy Chalamet episode. I'm pretty sure. Wasn't that
That
when the
when was
that
that? Was
sketch
that
was?
like yeah, that was like 3, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, it was the episode prior to this one. If you count this as
Right.
another
It was
episode,
like
so
last weekend in
really funny.
January. Yeah.
Yep. And but we did they before this they cut into commercial and like showed a shot backstage, and
Hmm.
he was standing there in that, so you knew he was coming
He was doing something.
eventually at some point.
I
Yeah.
have to shout out
Um.
Sudeikis, Forte, and Wig in
Yes.
the audience for their part. And I have to
Yep.
super shout out Jenna Ortega and Kevin Costner for
Uh huh.
being sandwiched between
Yep.
Sudeikis and Forte. I
Whether they
think,
knew that was going to happen or not, they leaned
right.
into it. Yeah.
I think that Will Forte, I forget, but I think that he is one of the funniest people alive.
Yes.
Like, and I
Absolutely.
forget that I think that. And then I watch him and I go, oh my God, that's right. He's a genius.
Yeah, even though
Duh.
Andy
Like,
Samberg called him the worst cast member of all time in the
but
digital
if you
short.
saw, Andy Samberg was one above Will Forte on
Oh,
that
that is funny. That's good.
list.
That's good. um, yeah, and then the little line to Sarah Sherman's Michael Bloomberg. Great impression. She just
That really. Oh
so good.
man.
Um,
We got Kate
I
as
just
Rudy Giuliani again.
yes,
We got Diner
but
Lobster. Yeah, I loved it.
I thought it was interesting that like I mean, of course it had to be, but it was definitely 2001 Rudy Giuliani. It was not the Rudy
Yes.
Giuliani she would go to perform,
Right.
during COVID and everything. And then, yeah, not a lot of audience love when we saw Kenan Thompson as the lobster again. Maybe it's because they saw
Yeah.
him so early before he was
They
revealed,
probably did. And I
because
don't know,
that costume
maybe
had to come in.
the audience doesn't love Diner Lobster the way that the internet does, you know?
True, that's
I don't
very
know.
true. So yeah, really, really great. Alec Baldwin then introduces like a commercial montage,
Yeah.
which a lot of these we've seen a lot, and then they get into stuff from like the last 10 years, and you're like, oh yeah, all these like,
So many,
you know,
yeah.
Heroin AM and like things like that. We're
E-Meth.
like, oh, I forgot about that. E-meth, yeah. Um,
My favorite all time commercial,
mhm.
Mom Jeans.
Yes,
That
so
is an
good.
all-timer for me.
Absolutely.
The David Spade part of the Mulaney musical was so like where'd Spade go? And he just sat back
He's
down.
just like, I think I've got it.
That
I
was
got the
so
idea.
good. But
That
it
was
did make
very
me
funny.
so and then it took me down this like rabbit hole because usually that's Chris Red.
Right. True.
Apparently, when Chris Red left the show, it was because of a personal feud with Keenan, and Keenan went to Lauren and said, "It's him or me." And it was something to do with Chris Red trying to like date Keenan's ex or something weird. I don't This was all rumors, but like apparently and like but yeah, Chris Red like wasn't there. And apparently, yeah, him
Oh
and Keenan like
man.
fell out in like a big way, and Keenan like ultimatum to Lauren, and that's why Chris left the show. That's what I hear. That's the rumor.
Wow.
I know.
That's crazy because like I mean they did the show together. They did Keenan's sitcom
Right. So
together.
I'm thinking it must have been like right when that show ended because they only did 2 seasons of that, I think.
Oh yeah, 2 seasons. Ended in last episode aired January 31st, 2022, and
Chris Red must have left the show before that
that's
then.
when he left.
Okay,
Yeah, it was the end of 2022.
I think yeah, some beef with
Ooh,
Keenan, just like he wasn't there.
interesting.
Yeah, I saw that like on Twitter like while people were like during the show, and I was like, sorry, what?
Wow.
Yeah,
I never knew that. I
I didn't.
never
Yeah, I
like
just yeah.
I hadn't really looked into why he left. I
Oh,
was just
I
like,
just
well, he
assumed
did
he
5, 6 years,
yeah. I just assumed he left because it was time, but he hasn't been in anything.
Right?
Really? Maybe he's doing stand up. I don't know, but yeah, fascinating.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I
I'll see
want
if
to
I
see
can.
that documentary. That should
I'll
be
see if I can dig up. There was like an article someone linked. I don't know how reputable,
okay.
but I'll see if I can find it. Send it to you.
No, that would make sense because that would be the time for him to come back. I mean, he came back in all the others.
Yeah,
Did he come back? Hold on.
he wasn't
Now
in
we're
the
fully in this
last,
rabbit hole.
the one that aired this season. I don't think he was in. Well, he's done one every season since he started hosting, right?
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate. Okay, yeah. So he did not host from the this February 26th hosting was his last
So he
before.
missed 2 full seasons.
Yeah, which
Okay.
doesn't feel like he did, but he did.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel
Um.
like I think he showed up in 49 in Pete's episode for like a
mm,
second, but he didn't host his own. So, but yeah,
so that's why we've now had two New
right.
York musicals without Chris Red, and they were both after
After he
he
left.
left the show. So Pete Davidson gets the cameo, and Chris Red does not. That's
Yeah.
that's worth a deep dive, I
I will.
think.
I'll see if I'll like I was like just briefly looking at it and I'm sure I was on like Reddit or something. So, but people were
Yeah.
linking articles, so I'm sure there was like a Vulture article or some like something.
Wow, that's really interesting.
I
That's a
know.
whole
I
other
was like,
other layer to this thing.
I need a
Um,
whole documentary about like beefs between cast members.
yeah, right.
I don't think there's that
Um,
many, but
sorry, no, there's not that. Yeah, well, who else would there be? I mean, I know Mike Myers and Dana Carvey had like a falling out for a really long time,
Dana
but it
Carvey
wasn't
wasn't
like
in this.
lasting.
Yeah, Dana Carvey wasn't
He
in this
wasn't
at
in the special
all,
either.
which is
No.
surprising because he's been in like every episode. But
Yeah,
maybe that's why. I don't
but
know.
again, presented as a whole product.
Right. Yeah, if you
Um,
take all 50 leading up to this, yeah, then you've got
yeah,
your Dana Carvey figured out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that
exactly.
there was like stuff between like especially the original cast. I'm sure like at certain points they were feuding, but
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
How about that? Well,
little
we
detour.
leave our commercial parodies. We talked about that a little bit, and now we're in a Bronx beat. This was one I talked about at the beginning, where like this was when I think it really locked in what exactly they were doing. They were
Yeah.
using a modern framing and blending in the history of the show, and not only that, but like in this sketch in particular, showing how similar these really are.
Yeah.
I thought that was just really fascinating. I won't rehash the whole thing, but yeah,
I did miss in this. I
really
was kind
funny.
of hoping when it started that that meant we would get Tina Fey coming on to do her Philly accent again,
Yeah, yeah,
but we didn't. It's okay. But I
that's
was
okay.
hopeful.
That's okay. This was Linda Richmond's time.
Yes, yeah.
um,
It wasn't for Tina.
yeah, and then our third pre-taped montage of the evening,
Hmm.
third and final, um, was the in memoriam. Now, when they dissolve up on this shot with the
Yes.
lights low and everything, like they fully had
Yeah,
me hook, line,
they
and
got me.
sinker. I'm like, they're doing the in memoriam segment, and um, no, no, they fully leaned into the fact that not everything on SNL has aged well.
This was maybe like not my favorite thing to watch, but I think this was like the best thing they put into the special.
This got the biggest reaction from me
I couldn't
in
believe
terms
it.
of like
Yeah,
like you
genius.
think, yeah, you think when you think about the show, you know that they're not proud of
Right.
some of the things that they put on, so you would think you'd never see it again, and now they're taking that, going, yeah, we did that,
Yeah.
we don't do it anymore, but how crazy was that, and putting it together in this thing that we can all look back on and go like, whoa, man, that was
And
crazy.
to start it with Tom Hanks going, "We made it, but at the time, people liked it."
You laughed at it,
Right.
so
I thought it
really.
was so good because I feel like, yeah, the internet especially has a tendency to isolate those moments and say, can you believe SNL, used to do this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
And I think it
shut
was
them
really
down.
cool to be like, well, we've always been popular, so what does that say about you
Hmm.
guys? Like, and then I
Yeah.
also appreciated that they didn't stop it in the 80s and that they kind of,
Yep.
I think the newest clip was probably the Stefan Snooky David Patterson. I want to say that was like the most recent clip
Hmm.
included in there, and that's not that old.
No,
But
no, that would have been 2010, 2011, and
yeah,
things like anytime Fred Armisen played Barack Obama.
yeah, yeah.
That's in there.
That Lucy
So
Liu
many
thing.
blurred out faces
Yes.
with in blackface.
The two murderers that John Mulaney
Yep, the two
mentioned in the monologue.
murderers. Yep, yep, yep.
I really
Um,
liked how at first it would say, it would kind of tag it with like what was bad about this. And
uh-huh.
then it wasn't, you get to the Adrian Brody and the tag just says, whoa.
Whoa.
And then from there it's, yikes. Couple
Uh-huh.
problems here. Don't know what to say
Yep.
about this. I thought it was so, so good. I thought it was such a good, if you're going to do a clip show type thing, like
Make
I
it
would
count.
never have thought of that.
Nope, me
I would
either.
never have expected they would do that. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still in. I want to watch it
I know.
again. I mean,
Yeah.
like, and
And
then
that the very last clip. Woof.
You know what? You know that happened on episode 7. That was early, early, early. And it
Yeah.
is it is a good piece of satire and
Hmm.
it's powerful, but you can't have Chevy Chase saying that
Well, this has
ever.
been
You know what I mean?
this has been something that I've noticed in like at the concert and then
Uh-huh.
during this, a lot of people shouting out Chevy Chase specifically. It's weird. It's like
Mhm.
I was like, I thought you all like hated him, and then like Jimmy Fallon is at the concert introducing the next artist, and he goes, "Hey, Chevy Chase," and Sandler's going, "Hey, Chevy." I'm like, "What are we doing? What's?" And then
Mhm.
so I was like, "Oh, are we turning the tides on Chevy, and now we like all love him again?" And then they threw that clip in right at the end. I said, "Oh, maybe we don't love
Maybe
Chevy.
not, maybe not.
Maybe Lauren does not love Chevy."
Yeah, I I I literally don't know anymore. And it could
Yeah.
come down to like they're just trying to get on his good side for the time being so that he doesn't go
I
up there and like
guess.
Adam Sandler didn't mention me, you
But
know.
them throwing that
Um,
clip in must get rid of all of that any goodwill that they had garnered. I don't know.
we'll see.
I don't
We'll
know.
see. I'm sure he'll find somebody to interview him and talk about all this. Um, yeah, we have that. Then we go up on a new Debbie Downer, which was incredible. And I know like we were my watch party in particular
Hmm.
was saying like, "Where's Rachel Dratch? Where's Rachel Dratch? Where's
Yeah.
Rachel Dratch?" And
Yeah.
finally, she got her own thing. And like, again, Debbie Downer, more recent in terms of like the
Yeah.
full length history of the
In the
show,
context of everything, yeah.
but you can't argue with something that worked its way into just linguistic
Right, that's a phrase people use
English.
because of that sketch. It is not a sketch
Yeah,
because that was a phrase. Like it
exactly.
created it.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that Disney World Debbie Downer, like that is an all-timer.
Hmm.
Obviously because everybody broke, but I just think it is
Yep.
so funny. And I routinely at my dinner table with my family, if there's like a if there's silence, I will out of nowhere say, "Well, it's official. I can't have children." And
That's
it
a good
gets him
bit. That's a good bit.
every time. Every
Yeah.
time it works.
Yep. And one thing that Meryl was saying on the phone was like she didn't like how they brought back a lot of lines from that original Debbie Downer, and I was
Mhm.
like, well, hold on, because they it's not known that they did this, but they beat Debbie Downer to death in
Right,
season 30 and
yeah.
31. They restaged that sketch a lot.
We
And
only see a couple of them now, but
right.
they were,
And
yeah.
and every single time she mentions feline aids. So it's like
That's the running, yeah.
it's not a Debbie Downer sketch without the mention of feline aids and stuff
Right.
like that. And then she was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. She thought it was just like they took the whole last half of um the Disney World sketch
Right.
and just restaged it. It's like, well, kinda, but they did it 9 more times before that too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like
I
that's what a Debbie Downer sketch is,
what a quartet. Jimmy Fallon and
right?
Drew Barrymore stars of one of my favorite movies ever, Fever
Yep.
Pitch.
Oh yeah, I forgot about their
Uh,
co-star history.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Io and De Niro. Yeah. Yeah.
The another moment that I transcended was De Niro saying to Debbie Downer, "All right, Debbie, I'm going to say something and you're going to shut it."
Yeah.
That was
So good.
such a good line to give to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
I could not get over any of it. And then like I've had a lot to say about the new Hollywood Squares reboot that
Mm,
Drew Barrymore is the center square for. I'm unsure where I land on like Drew Barrymore as personality,
yeah.
but she can kill in these SNL sketches. She's
Right.
perfect. She's perfect. So yeah, what a group. I hope this means Io comes back this year.
That is what I'm. She has a movie coming out in March, so
Okay,
fingers
maybe
crossed. We are setting
she
up the rest of the season for them.
she should be our next like host every year person.
I hope so.
100%.
Because she's only hosted once and she seems to
Yep.
be like a big part of
Yep.
SNL now.
Yeah. Well, she knew everybody before. I mean,
Right.
her and Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers, everybody who was in the Brooklyn
All the
comedy sphere,
writers, yeah.
Sarah Sherman, like all of them. And so she's well loved and well trusted in that room. I don't think it would be a shock at all to see her come back a lot more. Yeah, we really could. I mean, especially after this, we could set them up for the rest of the year, I
Yeah.
think.
And
There's
maybe that's what they were doing, you know?
Yeah, there's only 10 episodes to go, I believe, which is crazy, or maybe even less than
Yeah.
that.
I
So
bet it's less. Because they also another didn't announce the next host, which I was convinced they were gonna do.
I thought they were too. And Martin Short started talking about like, oh, we come
Yeah.
back in 2 weeks. I thought that's when he was going to drop it, and he didn't.
He didn't, yeah.
Um, so yeah, just just amazing. And then we had the Scared Straight sketch with
I was
Eddie Murphy, Kenan
surprised that they
Thompson,
did
Will
this one.
Ferrell.
It
Yeah.
makes sense that he did it, but I was shocked when it started. I was like, "Oh my God,
Uh huh.
scared straight."
Uh huh.
Like, yeah, give it to me, but like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. This one was another one, like another like Keenan Eddie thing that this was my only one. While again, everything that was presented was good, was
Hmm.
very good.
Yeah,
But in terms of Keenan Thompson and Eddie Murphy, we saw them already together.
right, right.
We saw Will Ferrell do his thing
Yeah,
already. I wish maybe we would have seen a what up with that if we had to do a
I was
Keenan centered sketch.
I was kind of hoping if I'd gotten to pick between that and scared straight, I would have preferred What's Up with That. But again,
Mm-hmm.
no Bill Hader. How do you do What's Up
That's
with
an
That
excellent
without
point.
Lindsey Buckingham? You know, I
That's
mean,
an excellent
obviously,
point.
Scared Straight was usually it was Bill, Andy, and Bobby or the host,
Mm-hmm.
depending. But yeah,
Yeah, that's an excellent. I had not considered the uh, the fact that Bill Hader wasn't there. The other
it's
thing I was
yeah,
thinking about today, why they wouldn't want to do what up with that yet, is because what up with that is absolutely making it into Keenan Thompson's
right,
final episode,
yeah,
whenever that may be.
yeah,
Um, so if that's this year, who knows? But point is, I think they want to hold on to it
right.
to make it more about him than the show.
Because it is Keenan's sketch.
Yes,
It is like above
100%.
all, Scared Straight. Keenan's good in it, but it's not
Hmm.
solely his. But what up with that is like that's Keenan's.
Yep. Yeah. So maybe we'll see it. And
Eddie Murphy swearing directly into camera and getting bleeped.
oh, I missed that.
He right into camera says like mother right into the camera towards the end of the sketch.
Okay, sometime I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to rewatch.
you
That's
gotta
really
go.
funny.
It was towards the end. Yeah, they were all walking around like Michael Longfellow, and they would say something. Yeah, and he right in there. I was like, oh, and they
Oh,
like
there it
cut the
is.
sound out for a second. I was like, all right,
Interesting.
Eddie,
Wow.
okay,
Okay. I gotta look that one up. I was just thinking of all the things I wanted to do to Michael
right.
Longfellow when he
Your
was
attention was elsewhere.
sitting like he was. I was like, you inviting me over here, or like, what are we doing? Come on. Anyway, Don't Look Back in Anger is what they played next.
Yeah,
With Garrett Morris introducing it, and he had a couple of great
that
lines
Garrett Morris
there
intro was
too.
good. Yeah,
That's the thing, like you know what? I think he was the oldest one in
I
that
think
original
well, because
cast.
he was older than the rest of them by a decent amount, I think.
Oh wow, he's 88.
Yeah, wow.
He is 88. That's actually incredible.
He's older than
Um,
Lorne.
what's that?
He's older than Lorne.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I knew he was up there. I didn't realize he was
Yeah.
that up there. Um, it, but like again, you talk about these people there's something about the talent that they have been able to find through every era of this show
Hmm.
where like they got it right because through their entire lives they never lost it.
Right.
Garrett Morris is 88. He was
Yeah.
almost 40 when the show started, and he's still that good.
Yeah. He
Like,
was just as sharp as ever. Like, yeah,
yep,
it was great.
it was just amazing, and I thought it was a really great choice to play that one.
Yes.
Some of the people I was watching with didn't really feel it,
I
but
loved it.
I know what that sketch means to the original cast.
Yeah.
And it's so it's eerie almost because it's like the whole comedic concept I talked about at the beginning
Hmm.
is that like you look at that group and you go, John Belushi's never going to be the one
Right.
to outlive everybody, and then you turn out to be right
Yeah.
only 2 or 3 years later that he didn't outlive everybody. In fact, he was the first one to go. Um, and just these little funny like ways that everybody died and
Hmm.
their career. It was funny because like that movie when he said Chevy Chase died after that making that movie with Goldie Hawn. That had just come out, so
Yeah.
basically they were saying
Saying
like
that. Yeah.
not much time. But yeah, very. I like that they played it in its entirety.
I
I
thought
I
that was
really
a.
do.
I think that was a really good choice of like a way to pay tribute to the original cast
Hmm.
without just, a series of clips or,
Yep.
some montage or some. I thought that was like yeah, I thought that was perfect. A perfect way to kind of wrap it
Hmm.
up.
For sure. Um, and that was it. We had one more. We had the Paul McCartney performance, which
Hmm.
was amazing. One thing that Calvin said was like, I thought this was just going to be like he was just going to sing something and then go. I didn't realize he was going the entire end of Abbey Road, like the entire back
Right.
half of
Yeah,
Abbey
he
Road.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, God, so cool. And of course, they got the shots in the crowd of everybody
Hmm.
into it. Um, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Just really great. So now we can go over the music performances. We talked about Paul Simon and Sabrina Carpenter. Fantastic. We talked about Nothing Compares to You.
Hmm.
Um, the efficiency of that particular
Yeah.
selection. Aubrey Plaza introducing them though was
That
very
was
surprising.
shocking to me. Yeah.
Um, if you don't know, like she her husband ended up um, committing suicide in January.
Yeah.
Um, it was uh, clearly she has been through it
Right.
this last like 6 weeks to two
Yeah.
months. Seeing her in public, introducing the guest was very cool. I'm glad she felt like she could do that. But what I didn't know was that under the blazer she was wearing was a
Hmm.
tie-dye shirt. And then I found out after the fact the background of that was that her husband had gotten really into tie-dyeing in the pandemic, and that was one
Right.
of his shirts.
Yeah.
Um, so when she puts the microphone down completely um, after she introduces Miley Cyrus and Brittany Howard, again, nothing was an accident last night, and
Right.
that was definitely like, you know,
Yeah.
she wanted people to see what she was wearing. Um, just amazing. Again, just packed with moments that mean so much outside of the show, and that's one of
Right.
them. Um, the Adam Sandler song, you talk about moments when you tear up.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I knew it was
I knew it
coming
was coming.
because
Yeah.
he did that. He always does that, he always mentions Chris Farley in
Hmm.
his in stuff like that. So like, yeah, you knew it was coming, but it was still, yeah. In place of a formal, in memoriam segment, I think it was really nice. I liked it a lot.
Hmm. Yeah. And, like, he did that full sketch in the or not, it wasn't a sketch, it was the song he wrote for his stand-up special, about Chris Farley. He did
Hmm.
it during his SNL hosting in 2019.
Right.
And so when you fade up on that and it's Adam Sandler with a guitar and a TV, I thought either they're doing that again, the Chris Farley
Hmm.
song, or they're still going to do something that is like paying tribute to
Yeah.
somebody. So I braced myself then for like,
Yeah.
tears. But the people that he shouted out, I found so interesting.
Hmm.
He says things like, um, uh, he calls out like Melanie Hutzel, who wasn't there
Yeah.
very long, but was there with him,
Right.
and um, it's escaping me the rest of the people he called out. This was by the time I had completely stopped taking notes because I was like,
Yeah.
I need to experience this.
Yeah.
I'll go through my notes, I guess, in a second, but um, gosh, that was just so cool. It was
Yeah.
really good,
I really liked
really
it.
good. Um, Lil Wayne and the Roots were fantastic, and I love that selection covers all the genres. You know,
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus is pop, Brittany Howard is alternative, Lil Wayne is hip hop, and then Paul McCartney is classic rock.
Yeah. My
They
sister texted me
showed the
during Lil Wayne and was like, "What is this performance?" I was like, "Stop watching.
yeah,
Leave
it's
me." I was
like
like,
it's
"This is Lil
fantastic.
Wayne." I was like, "She doesn't know who that is, so that's part of it." But
Mm,
you know,
gotcha. Yeah,
I was like, "Shut
it's
up."
more for us, right?
I was
Like,
like, "Yeah,
um, but yeah, I thought that was really cool. A really cool way to round out like the different styles of music that have been on the show.
definitely, yeah,
Again, everything's intentional. Um, and then we close with Paul McCartney, um, and that's it.
yeah,
That's the entire show. At least 100 people with speaking roles. So as much as like I would like to say like, oh man, we didn't get to see Sherry O'Terry. We didn't get to see
yeah,
like um who else was I thinking about? Um we didn't get to see like Kevin Nealon. We didn't get to see Jane Curtin.
right."
They got a lot of people in here. A lot.
To get everyone would be an 8-hour special. Like
Yes.
it's just not feasible
Hmm.
to get
We'd love it. Don't get me
everybody. Yeah,
wrong, but
I would love to see it. Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, I was kind of writing down my list of people. I was like, where were they? But
Uh-huh.
there were so many people that were there that it's like, it's probably okay.
Yep, for sure. I'd rather see the people that we did get to see do what they did
Right.
rather than how they got everybody in the during the 40th, which was just introducing stuff. They didn't do anything
Yeah.
for the most part in the 40th. They just tossed to the clip reel or
Yeah.
to the performance or something like that. Um, yeah, all in all, again, what could there have been more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what was presented was airtight,
It was great.
just
I loved it.
incredible. Some of the things that I just noted
Mhm.
was that I mean this was like a third of the way through. I was like, oh my god, they're really going to do all sketches tonight. It's not going to be
Yeah.
as retrospective as I thought. Um, and before the audience Q&A or during the audience Q&A, you saw Seth Meyers in the shot in someone else's shot, and he
Mhm.
was like looking around and looking all anxious, and I'm like, love how Seth Meyers is looking around wondering what's coming next as if he didn't write all of it, you know.
Right, right.
He was there at the table read at the very least.
Yeah.
What then it looked like was happening was he couldn't see a card. Maybe he
He
was like
wasn't sure when his cue was.
when his
Right.
turn was up. But so that's what was happening there. But in that same shot where Seth Meyers is like, you see, please don't destroy, way up, and I mean up at the top row of the
I
studio,
think they put
just taking it all in.
put them with the writers probably, I would assume.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Oh,
You mean
special.
outside,
I
standing
was
in the
gonna
rain?
say shout out to that quick joke about the writers.
So
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
you see people in that shot that's like the two that stood out to me was Simon Rich on
Mhm.
the left
Yeah.
and David Mendel on the right.
Mhm.
who wrote the last 3 seasons of Veep. Like he was the executive producer of Veep at the end. And to say nothing of Seinfeld and obviously
Right.
SNL and things
Yeah.
like that. So just crazy. I love like catching those little like moments. I
Mhm.
also think I could give Simon Rich a good time, but uh, Cher Cher's just presence in the crowd, and then like being involved in the Q&A monologue was just fantastic because every time you cut to her, like it's like normal person, normal person, normal person,
Cher.
Cher,
So
normal person, normal
Cher
person.
at one point was next to Kevin Costner.
Uh huh.
So if you end up watching the concert, Cher performed um If I Could Turn Back Time.
Mm-hmm.
And it cuts to Kevin Costner in the audience with his hands on his head, like staring in disbelief at just like, oh my God, that's
What's happening?
Cher. And so then yeah, then
Mm-hmm.
later to see they put them next to each other. I was like, good for Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Um, yeah, and then I did know she performed that, and I know they caught the cameras caught Lorne Michaels
Singing
singing along, which was really cool.
Lorne, I thought it was super sweet. At the concert a lot, they were shouting out Lorne specifically, but then at the good nights for this, I it was nice that he was not center stage, but he was right there, even
Hmm.
though he looked very uncomfortable and didn't want any of the
He did look
attention.
very uncomfortable, and like I saw someone on Twitter saying like, "Oh, Lorne looked so sad." At the end of the good nights, and I'm like,
Oh,
and
he
they
just
specifically said, "What do you think the network told him about his future with the show?" And I'm like, let's pump the brakes here. This would have been an emotional night for anybody. It was an emotional
yeah,
night for me, and
right.
I've just watched.
Yeah.
I've watched less than half of like I've
Yeah.
been around for less than half of the show,
Yeah.
and I'm emotional. Can you imagine? This was this man's passion project that he thought was going to last 2 months in
Right.
1975,
Yeah.
and now it's changed the entertainment landscape forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
emotional.
I,
You gotta let the man breathe.
and also, I don't think he looked sad. I think he
Mm-mm.
looked, to me, it looked like he didn't want to be on camera,
Yeah, that too.
but
He never does.
no.
Um, but oh, and as you know, we know that this is a Beth McCarthy Miller Stan podcast.
Hmm.
She was cited in the crowd as well. I think in the same row as Please Don't Destroy. She
So
was
not
way up.
directing.
Not directing,
Hmm.
but it's because she directed the concert.
Yeah.
And I am so proud that I texted you. I did catch like 45 ish minutes of the
Hmm.
concert live. Um, and I'm watching one of the performances. I think it was Mumford and Sons. And there were a couple of shots in there where I was like, I think Beth McCarthy Miller's in the chair tonight. And the next morning, I couldn't stay up for the whole thing, but the next morning I looked up, I just skipped to the credits.
Right.
Sure enough, Beth McCarthy Miller directed the concert, and I was like, I won.
You got
I
it.
won. I can pick out Beth McCarthy Miller's style anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
You got
And
it.
I'm so proud of it. I would love to get to talk to her. But anyway. Um, uh, we talked about Fred Armisen bringing like the sketch. You think
Yeah.
they'll read it again? And he's like, that bit ended with him saying, "Okay, like next time Spacey hosts."
Yeah.
And
And the
acted for high
whole
five.
room.
It was
Olivia
so
Munn like
good.
cowering away from him.
It was so
Yeah.
good. Oh my god. Um. Oh man, yeah. I said Weekend Update on Fire, and Cecily's a hero for doing this. Weekend Update Countdown was inspired. Um. Yeah, my last three notes before I stopped taking notes entirely were uh, I'm absolutely floored at how good this is. I missed a few here, but I'm flying. This is amazing. So
Right. And then you're like,
that
oh,
was
I'm
the
gonna go
state of
ahead
mind
and
I was in. Yeah, that was the state of mind I was in when we were finishing up. I was like, I can't even type anymore. I just have to live.
that was me on the red
Um,
carpet. At first my notes were just
yeah,
like, Tina looks so good. Maya looks so good. I'm like, I don't need to be writing this. Like this is
right.
not relevant information.
Yeah, of course they're gonna look good. Yeah.
Duh.
Um. Oh man. Well, that was about 2.5 hours on the 4 hour to 3.5 hour special.
Yeah, it was long.
Um. Is there like I had to work through like depressive feelings last night and this morning because I'm like, oh my god, that was everything I hoped it would
Yeah.
be and more.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like that is a moment that's never gonna happen again. You won't capture the same feeling when the show turns 60.
No, 50
It's
is
just not gonna
such,
be the
yeah.
same. Yeah.
50 is like the milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So huge, huge, huge shout out to everybody who got to experience that.
Yeah.
Um, even the people in the iPhone pit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I dogged on you earlier, but like you did get to be there, and they probably got to watch the special from Studio 8G. They talked
Right.
about how like there were so many guests they couldn't fit them all. So those people probably got the other studio viewing experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, mm, wow,
Yeah.
this was this this was a moment. And look, I know Lauren has talked about like not he hasn't been very specific about like his intentions for the
Right.
end of the for his retirement or whatever. As good as this was and as good as this went, if I'm him, I'm thinking so hard this morning because if you leave right now, not right now, but at the end of the
Yeah.
season, after what this season has been so far, after all of the retrospective material and the special, the concert, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
leaving now would be like Peyton Manning retiring after the Super Bowl in
Right. It's,
2016.
yeah. You're
It's
at the height.
you have done it.
Yeah.
And it's not that like anybody thinks you're going to blow it
It's
necessarily,
just that, yeah.
but even the best it could get in seasons 51 and 52, it's not going to top what last night meant
Right.
to all of those people.
Yeah.
Again, I don't wish his retirement, but if I'm him, I'm thinking so hard about how good that was
Yeah.
and how good it felt, and that being the pinnacle,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um,
I think we won't know until the end of the season. I don't think maybe
mhm,
even not until before the next season.
mhm,
I guess we just kind of have to sit and wait. I have literally no idea what he's gonna do. I cannot,
mhm,
because I think for a long time, even he was saying he would retire at 50, and then all of a sudden it was he was like, well, I don't feel like I need to. I
mhm.
could keep going if I wanted. So yeah, I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know what
Yeah,
happens next.
I don't either. I'm just, again, like I said, I'm gonna go finish this podcast, edit it very lightly. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do too much to it, and then I'm gonna go watch this whole thing again.
Yeah.
Again, like it's just it meant so much to, and I could tell how much it meant to the people in the room.
Oh, yeah. It was, yeah. Everybody seemed like they were having a really good time. It just
Hmm.
seemed like nice and fun and sweet. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah,
I don't really
just
have
just
like big,
wonderful.
smart things to say about it. I just loved it.
Well, we talked about all of it at the beginning. Like we
Yeah.
talked about our, macro feelings across the whole
Yeah.
thing. We talked about, I mean, we broke down every segment. Two things that I have, like a testament to like the technical
Mhm.
aspect. We talked about how they did all of this in very, very limited space.
Yeah.
Like the sketches, we talked about it already. sketches taking place in about half the space that they usually do. Um, but so the fact that we only saw cameras in the shot, like errant cameras in the shot, obviously when you do a wide, you're going to see cameras, but
Mm-hmm.
cameras where they shouldn't have been. We only saw cameras in the shot twice in 3.5 hours
Yeah.
with that limited space. That is a technical marvel
Yeah.
that they weren't accidentally shooting each other all night.
Right.
Um, just incredible. One thing I will note that I noticed yesterday that I've noticed in a lot of SNL in the past, like I would say 2 to 3 years, the colors are very muted. It's a lot grayer in the
Yes.
last 2 or 3 years than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And what really stood when that really stood out to me was like the few montages they did show.
Mm-hmm.
It was like there was a I don't remember what came right before, but it was like they were showing video from when the show was in high definition, like early 2010s,
Mm-hmm.
that initial transition, and then they show the shot of John Mulaney getting blasted with green slime,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, wait a second, that's bright. That should be bright green,
Right. And it isn't.
like, and it's not.
No.
And every clip I've seen, they'll do. People have been posting side by side screenshots of like the old Scared Straight sketches versus
Mm-hmm.
the new ones, and I'm like, that's really gray too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the contrast needs to come up just a
Mm-hmm.
touch more. But it's really interesting that like it is something that in the back of my mind I noticed for a while. I thought it was my own personal setup, but it appears it's just gotten a little duller
Yeah.
um, in more recent seasons, which is really interesting.
It is.
I
Yeah.
don't know
I
why.
wonder why, if that was deliberate or if it was, yeah. Hmm.
I don't know. Something to keep an eye on
Yeah.
for the future. But other than that, I mean, obviously, like it was still good. It didn't get in the
Right.
way. It's just, um, you know, it is just such a bright show. You would think
Yeah.
they'd want to reflect that, but
Yeah.
oh man, we did it. We knew
We
this was
did
going to
it.
be the longest one we were going to
Yeah.
do. But I can't, I can believe, but I am just giddy with how good that was,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah.
Um, any final thoughts as we finish our SNL 50th anniversary retrospective?
I'm sad that it's over.
Yeah, me
Been
too.
looking forward to it for so long that I'm like, and it is
Hmm.
so funny to me that like we just have more episodes after this.
Hmm.
It's so funny to do it in
We just go back to
February and
regular. Yeah.
not do it to end the season.
Hmm.
Because it is, yeah, it's like, well, Martin Short's like, well, we're back in 2 weeks. I
Yeah.
was like, you're just gonna come back to work in a week and just like pretend like none of
Do a
that happened? Like,
regular show.
yeah,
Yeah.
normal show now? That's
Yep.
crazy.
It's wild. It time keeps marching.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah.
Um, yeah, just amazing. Just across the board.
Good job,
Great,
Lauren.
great, great show. Yep. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I don't have anything profound.
Any highlight? I mean, I don't know if you want to keep talking about all this, but if there's any highlights from the concert that you think are worth shouting out here,
I
please
think the
do.
concert is worth watching because it was just
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
an unbelievable lineup. And to
Mhm.
like be in that room, like, good God, like, oh my God. The highlights from me watching it, um, the crowd went the most crazy, I think, for the Backstreet Boys. Like, I
Nice.
think that was the most excited people got, which was
Uh huh.
fun. The Nirvana Post Malone performance, unbelievable.
Amazing.
Like, are you
Hmm.
kidding me? So cool. Um,
Yeah.
Mumford and Sons. I forgot how much I loved Mumford and Sons back in
Hmm.
like high school, and that really it, like awoke it all in me again. And then they did the Boxer, which is like one of my favorite Paul Simon songs and one of my favorite Mumford & Sons songs. It was on their
Yeah.
second or third album.
Hmm.
Um, excellent. Cried. Duh. At like the concept of Paul Simon, like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was like Mumford & Sons and Jerry Garcia, but I was still crying at like the concept of Paul Simon.
Uh-huh.
And then my number one performance for the night, I don't know if it was like objectively the best one, but it was my favorite, was Robin and David Byrne
I've
doing
heard a
Dancing
lot
on My
about
Own
this
and
one. I'm
Stop Making
excited to see
Sense.
it.
Oh my God, it was so cool. David Byrne is the coolest person alive.
Hmm.
And like John
Nice.
Mulaney introduced it, which was like perfect because they're just like
Yeah.
really good friends for some reason. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
just like so fun. Everybody was having a great time. Again, it was that thing where every single shot of the audience was just like 20 celebrities that you're like, oh my God.
Yep.
And
It
yeah,
was a
I was
feast.
just,
Every
it,
crowd shot was a feast.
it was, yeah, it was crazy. It was like, after just watching the Grammys, which I thought was good, I watched this and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, why aren't the Grammys this every year? Like, why aren't we doing
Hmm.
this every year? But
True.
yeah, worth
Yeah.
watching. It's long, but it's worth watching.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've known, I mean, especially the more that I've seen about the concert, like as
Hmm.
that's coming through, like
Oh,
I'm like,
Dust. Shout
it's
out to
good.
the Lonely Island medley. Are you kidding
Yes,
me? Whoa.
that was fun.
So good. So
I did
good.
end up watching that
Yeah.
entire thing. Um,
The
Lady Gaga doing Dick in a Box was
that first like
fascinating.
shallow and Andy starts singing, I
Uh-huh.
just lost it. So funny.
Yeah.
He's the funniest person
Yep.
alive. And then other shout out to Will Ferrell and Anna Gassier doing, I cannot remember the characters' names.
The Culps.
The Culps, yes.
Hmm.
That was just so, so funny.
And 3 weeks in a row now where all of America sang in one accord.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
minor.
I couldn't believe it.
Amazing.
I couldn't believe
Just
it.
wild,
Yeah,
wild,
so
wild
funny.
moment we're living through right now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be watching all of it. I'm sure I'll have stuff to bring to the table once I do
Yeah, sorry, you
see
asked
the whole
me
thing.
for my highlights and then I named half the performances, but you know,
But
what can you do?
that's the beauty of it, right? Is
What
it
can you do?
literally was that
Yeah,
good.
it was so good.
Um, yeah,
Cher.
I did catch like the piece that I saw live. Well, one of them was like when Jimmy Fallon was talking about his SNL audition, which I thought was interesting because I was like,
That part was weird and I
seems a
think it
little off topic.
dragged a
Yeah.
little.
Hmm.
I think Jimmy was, I think he was like the de facto host, and whenever they had to kill time, he went out there because there was a part of the end where they were setting up for Jack White to close it out, and Jimmy like was like,
Mm,
they told me to vamp. Like he's very clearly just like
I see.
talking. So
Okay.
I think that maybe was part of it.
I get it because like
Just filling time.
initially when I because I was talking about it with Meryl and I was like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's not like he had to stretch for the broadcast, but that makes more sense if he
Yeah.
was stretching in favor of setting up,
I think
like the
that
stage
that's
being setting
I
up.
think that that's what it was. Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense to me because some of those like just speeches
Right.
hit me weird, but like it that makes sense
Yeah.
for sure. Um, well, again, this what you if you're an SNL fan, the 5 people that watch this, if you are an SNL fan, you are going to walk on air
Yeah.
watching this thing. It was perfect, and that's all my thoughts on it. 3
Yeah.
hours worth of thoughts.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see you back here when we finally get that confirmation because we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
But when we finally get that confirmation about the March 1st episode of SNL, we will be right back here breaking it all down for you. And hopefully it's one of the ones we predicted. Iowa Debris, Kiki Palmer, Bill Murray. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Sabrina Carpenter. That's
Right.
four
There you
predictions. All right. Goodbye. Oh, also, this is the sweater I bought after the SNL experience.
go. Nice.
It was the only thing in there that specifically had the 50th season logo. So I
Yeah.
was like, it's mine. So that's why I'm not wearing the usual show shirt today. I don't want any notes about that. But that's what we got going on. That's SNL50, baby.
We did it. It's done.
Good job, Caroline. See you at the next iPhone pit at the the SNL red carpet.
We're getting the invite next time.
Exactly. Yeah. Bring your external chargers. We're going to go to the iPhone pit. Oh, man. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. See you
Bye.
in a few.